What are you doing? You done?
I am just getting started. The best possible thing to happen to Mayans M.C. as a show was Kurt Sutter getting fired and Elgin James taking over. Play my damn intro! Hey everybody, Fatman here, and that opening bit was more than just a desperate cry for attention, believe it or not. Today, I am going to be diving way too deep into the controversial Sons of Anarchy spinoff, Mayans M.C. To reiterate, I personally believe that the best thing to happen to Mayans was Kurt Sutter stepping down and Elgin James taking over after season 2. This is easily the series' biggest point of contention, and we'll talk a lot more about that throughout this retrospective, but I figured I'd be as upfront about it as I could to hopefully save us all some time and aggravation. If you want to skip the preamble and jump right to the season-by-season breakdown, timestamps will be provided, hopefully one right here, but you will find yourself missing some sorely needed context.
Casual cowards, why even watching the video?
I've long championed this show as not only a great spin-off, but a fantastic series in its own right. This is a video I have always wanted to make. In fact, it was kind of the reason I started doing retrospectives, but it only made sense to do Sons of Anarchy first. So I did that and talked about Sons of Anarchy for nearly 3 hours, link in the description. Most discourse seems to fall into one of two categories. Fans being upset that Mayans wasn't just a rehash of Sons of Anarchy, and fans claiming that the series had potential under Sutter but went to hell when Elgin James took over. I feel the exact opposite on both points. Under Sutter, the series was overbloated, repetitive, and was quickly stagnating into a cheap Mexican Sons knockoff. Elgin breathed new life into the story and, well, certainly not perfect. I truly believe that the seasons piloted by him were leagues better than anything we got under Sutter. Just to be clear, this isn't a knock against Kurt Sutter. His resume speaks for itself. He did stellar work on The Shield. Sons of Anarchy clearly exploded in popularity and cemented itself into the cultural zeitgeist. And for as negative as I've sounded so far, I don't think that his work on Mayans was necessarily bad. It was just far too derivative of Sons of Anarchy. I respect him as a creative, so I don't want to sound like I'm glad he lost his job after season 2. But specifically in the context of what was better for Mayans as a series, no contest. For me, it was Elgin taking over as showrunner. I say all this not to be a contrarian, but mainly to impress the idea on the folks that may be watching that if you clicked on this video looking for me to shit on the series, then you can go ahead and look elsewhere. Again, this is all done to save us some time and effort, because I promise you, I will not be entertaining any comments that are in any way, shape, or form an amalgamation of "This show was so much better under Kurt Sutter, Elgin James ruined it," or "We fans deserve so much better, bring back Kurt Sutter and have him do seasons 3, 4, and 5. Baskin-Robbins has 31 flavors, and I am indeed still choosing to be salty. But that's a result of so many people who watch this series toiling away in the salt mines themselves. If you're a Sutter dick rider who's already decided that you hate me and I suck because I won't trash Elgin in the back half of this show, then just go ahead and leave your hateful comment now. I will see you later for your inevitable "Here's why Jax Teller is still alive" theory bait video, and by later I mean never. As for the rest of you, welcome to the channel. I assume that you either enjoyed Mayans, disagree but are up for a respectable debate, or for some strange reason you just enjoy hearing me talk. Either way, there is a lot of ground to cover. Created by Kurt Sutter and Elgin James for FX, Mayans M.C. premiered in September 2018, nearly 4 years after the end of Sons of Anarchy, and focuses on the Sons' once rivals turned allies, the Mayans Motorcycle Club. The series rode for 5 seasons and 50 episodes before pumping the brakes in July of 2023. I always felt genuinely sorry for the series' cast and crew because the production was marred by problems throughout the show's run. They never got an easy season. Now is probably a good time to mention that the purpose of this video is to take an objective look at Mayans M.C., which sounds obvious, but spin-offs are a weirdly debated topic. Many feel that a spin-off should be able to stand on its own, independent of the series that came before it. And I can partially agree with that. However, I think it's an impossible ask to not reference Sons of Anarchy at all. A spin-off owes its existence to fans wanting to see more from that universe. By that same token, this won't be a comparison video. I think both motorcycle dramas had a unique flair and outdid each other in different ways, with Mayans eventually setting itself apart. A great call that works in the show's favor is that the cast is composed primarily of smaller scale actors, and in some cases, people who aren't even really actors. For a series like this to work, it needs to feel grounded, and having a smaller scale cast aids in that magnificently. That's not to say there are no big names, but the crew isn't big enough to be distracting, and the same strategy was used for Sons of Anarchy to great effect. Mayans also juggles a large and varied ensemble cast, so I'll begin with prospect Ezequiel Easy Reyes, played wonderfully by J.D. Pardo. It's so interesting to me that the series begins from the point of view of the club's prospect and not one of the fully patched members. That's a tricky line to walk because Easy has to be involved at all times, yet can't be fully privy to all of the club's operations, and the writers toe that line beautifully. Next, we have one of my personal favorites, Angel Reyes, full patched member and older brother to Easy, and he's played to perfection by Clayton Cardenas. Angel has one of my favorite arcs across Mayans, and I was immediately emotionally invested in him. Cardenas portrays Angel so authentically. There's such a raw, genuine performance here. The bond between the Reyes brothers is as important a narrative foundation to this story as John Teller's manuscript was to Sons of Anarchy. It's fleshed out and integrated expertly. I came to really appreciate the rest of the club as well, some getting their dues under Sutter and others getting their dues under Elgin. A couple of them undergo two completely different arcs between showrunners, and one of those characters is Club Presidente Obispo Bishop Loza. Michael Irby is such a powerhouse as Bishop. He continuously aces the assignment. Bishop is one of those characters that is always a treat to see on screen. Irby never phones it in or delivers a bad performance. VP Che Taza Romero is next, with Raul Max Trujillo absolutely killing it. Taza was a character I got hooked on very early into the show's run, and he brings this aged wisdom and stoicism of club life that meshes really well with Bishop's leadership. Hank Loza is the club's sergeant-at-arms, and he's such a big, lovable doof. He's also a human tank. The man is a brick wall. Much like Frankie Loyal, you can tell he's a total sweetheart, but will lay you out if you cross him. Fan favorite Johnny Coco Cruz quickly became the breakout character of the series, and it's not hard to see why. Talk about a dynamic performance. Richard Cabral is the real deal. So much of what makes up Coco's DNA mirrors Cabral's actual world. Gang life, addiction, criminal activity. You'll see this with a few characters across Mayans, and those are the ones that always become the most memorable. It's a no-brainer why so many viewers connected with Coco, and Cabral is a master at bringing this to the screen. And he does so without coming off as ham-fisted, preachy, or corny. There are few people on this planet as likable as Vincent Vargas. He's your bro, he's Coco's bro, he's my bro, he's everybody's bro. Everyone needs a friend like Vargas, and that's why he works so well as Gilberto Gilly Lopez. He's good-natured, but an ass-kicker. He's contained, but he's explosive. Vargas brings so many little nuances to Gilly, and in my opinion, they go criminally overlooked. Not to mention, Vargas is a legit Army Ranger and veteran, an amateur MMA fighter, and has worked as a Spec Op Medics and Border Patrol agent. Like, come on, how badass is this guy? His attitude is infectious as Gilly, and I was always hyped to see him get a little more to do. Rounding out the club, we have Antonio Jaramillo as Michael Riz Ariza, who gave a short but sweet performance, and another personal favorite of mine, Joseph Raymond Lucero as Neron Creeper Vargas. Lucero is another one of those golden picks whose real life intertwines with his character. Creeper is far and away the best example of what a true brother and club member looks like. He's often the most slept on, but to me, he is easily an S-tier character. Lucero is masterful in his approach. There's a real duality about Creeper. A quiet loneliness yet fierce loyalty that never overcompensates for his more nuanced aspects, just enhances them. Together, these men form the Santo Padre Charter of the Mayans Motorcycle Club, a charter placed near the border meant to facilitate the cartel's business on the US side. Speaking of the cartel, they play a pretty critical role here. Centering around Miguel Galindo filling the shoes of his deceased father, Jose, he works to balance the world of legitimacy and his family's dirty legacy. Danny Pino is such an oddity as Miguel. He doesn't look at all like how you'd imagine a cartel leader, but he brings the tenacity and intensity to the role while working to humanize Miguel. Sarah Bolger plays his wife Emily, with infant son Cristobal rounding out the core family. Cartels naturally inspire rebellion, so Carla Barada steps in to fill the shoes of Adelita, a rebel leader devoted to dismantling the Galindo cartel and saving Mexico. Barada is the true genius of this bunch, hands down. She's my favorite actor here, and without a doubt, Adelita is one of the best characters across both Sutter shows. Finally, rounding out our main cast, we have Edward James Olmos as Felipe Reyes, Easy and Angel's father and owner of the local butcher shop. Olmos is such a gangster. He's one of those old school street warriors that works so well in shows like this. He's imposing, and he means business. Felipe carries a world of experience, wisdom, and aptitude on his back, as well as enough secrets to sink the entire universe. There's a really healthy mix of traditional actors and novices, and Hollywood experience versus some real-world experience. And it all lends itself superbly to this series. As evidenced by how long I've been prattling on already, I have so much to say. With much further ado, this is Mayans M.C. The first season of Mayans, honestly, it isn't great. It's better than I remember, but it can still be a bit of a slog to get through. And what that boils down to more than anything else is this is an incredibly busy season. Due to the colossal success of Sons of Anarchy, Sutter jumps right into the action, and in the process of that, characters are often left behind, while some are just given way too much screen time. It's honestly confusing as to who or what this series is supposed to be about. The title says Mayans MC, but the show could just as easily have been called Galindo, and that wouldn't be too far off. The cartel gets entirely too much screen time. The problem being is they're not likable anti-heroes like the club members are. They're a cartel, so I already know I'm supposed to hate them. There's an uphill battle for likability here that the season never sells me on. The cartel's overabundance necessitates the increased involvement of the rebel group led by Adelita, Los Olvidados, or the LO for short. The LO is a collection of orphan children all impacted by cartel violence. This includes Adelita's protege/surrogate daughter, Minnie. Played fairly well by Melanie Ochoa, she is a really solid child actor. The cartel and the LO's Tom and Jerry-esque rivalry dominates so much of season 1 that the club is relegated to background characters. Sutter hits the ground running with grandiose stories before we even really know anyone, leading Mayans to really struggle to pick a direction to go in. He's stacking plotline after plotline on top of each other like he's trying to play Jenga with them. And the result is the loss of momentum and a convoluted, overburdened season. That's not to say the season is a bad one, though. The pilot episode does a decent job of introducing all the major players, even though it does lose some nuance in the process. The opening shot of Easy running over the crow is a nice touch, and I actually really enjoy the cinematography. It's bright, colorful, and aesthetically pleasing. The story begins in the fictional Southern California town of Santo Padre, or SP, and we learn that the club's main job is to transport the Galindo cartel's heroin safely across the border. I like that we get to see the nitty-gritty of the operation. They smuggle the drugs through a dressmaking warehouse and use underground tunnels to navigate the US-Mexico border. It's a nice touch that shines a light on the club's day-to-day, and that's appreciated when trying to make the show feel more grounded. The way Easy's background is doled out in small doses works wonders here too. The usage of flashbacks is perfectly implemented through Easy's photographic memory. While this is used sparsely throughout the series, it's spot on whenever they do it. This is honestly the best way I've ever seen flashbacks utilized as a narrative device. Another small detail that I really enjoyed is that the characters can say now. Wait, they can say but I can't? We get reintroduced to Marcus Alvarez, and Emilio Rivera is killing it as always. Now serving as the club's El Padrino, Alvarez takes on a less involved role as more of an overseer of the club. The Mayans' latest shipment of heroin is knocked over by a Samoan gang, and a firefight soon breaks out in order to catch their leader, Afa. Outnumbered and outgunned, Santo Padre calls for backup and the Sons, led by Packer, arrive to help them out. It feels the slightest bit shoehorned, but I can't pretend that I'm not excited to see Packer and the rest of Sam Dino, especially since it doesn't reduce the role of the Mayans or make them seem like a lesser club. This gunfight at the cemetery is stellar. Choreographed well with some creative camera work and tight pacing. Afa is captured and interrogated by Miguel, and this scene is as necessary as it is awesome. Miguel needs to prove himself, both in-universe and to the viewer. As I said earlier, he's pretty atypical of what you'd expect this character to look like. He has this pampered pretty boy air about him. But man, Afa's torture and dismemberment is brutal. And it quickly enforces that Miguel is not one to screw with. The closing minutes of the episode drop quite a few bombs, one being that Easy is a police informant. After serving just 8 of his 20-year prison sentence for killing a cop, Easy's second cousin and DEA agent Kevin Jimenez puts a deal for release on the table. Easy feeds the feds information about the Galindo cartel and all of their operations and affiliations on the contingency that the info can't be used to harm anyone in the club. I initially wasn't fond of Jimenez, but after this rewatch, I really latched on to Maurice Comte's work. There's this warmth and love in there that's often clashing with his own power-hungry and authoritative ego. Exploring Jimenez's background through his relationship with Felipe is honestly one of the highlights of the season. I find it super compelling that the narrative is told not just from the point of view of a prospect, but an informant. The club, the cartel, and his family can all come crumbling down with one wrong choice. And that's all placed squarely on Easy's shoulders. Some fans squabbled over this because, well, how are we supposed to root for a rat? I think it's a credit to the writing and Easy's dynamic with Angel and Felipe that we still want to see him succeed, even knowing that he is a rat. We want to see him become a free man. And this works because Easy is given a conscience. He is shown to truly love his family. While that obviously changes across the series in certain aspects, the core focus of his love for Angel never does. Speaking of Angel, I guess the rat thing just kinda runs in the family? Turns out, Angel, Gilly, and Coco planned the earlier heist in order to steal the heroin for Adelita and the LO. Literally half of this club is engaged in crimes that are punishable by death in the MC world. It's a dual theme between brothers that I really love, as each one of them is doing it for a pretty valid reason. Easy to live the life he was supposed to have as a golden boy who excelled in school and sports, and was all set up to go off to college to start a career and have a family. And then Angel, who has a desire to protect his brothers in the club from the cartel, and steer them away from the high risks associated with working for the Galindos. For the most part, this is a pretty solid premiere with just a few too many moving parts. This is like 2 seasons worth of storylines in one episode. My only other real issue, one that permeates both of the Sutter seasons, is that the dialogue and the music can feel extremely hokey and forced at points. The show suffers an identity crisis for it, because Sutter is clearly using these tools in the same way that he did for Sons of Anarchy, even though the world of the Mayans is a completely different one. The culture, language, and traditions of a Latino MC are obviously going to differ from a majoritively white club. He's trying to set the same tone, but that leads to a lot of hokey slang, forced humor, and even exaggerated accents in some spots. Even when the dialogue in Sons was cringe-inducing, it felt like a natural extension of the way these characters communicated with each other. But that's just not the case here. There's a lot of "Hey Holmes" or "What's up, essay" type lines that take me right out of the moment. Episode 2 opens with a bang as the LO corner Emily and kidnap her infant son, Cristobal. Bolger is absolutely killing it here. She does so all episode. She is the best part of this one by a mile. The club is tasked by Miguel to hit the streets and dig up info on Cristobal's whereabouts. After a purposeful leak from the LO sends Miguel into a frenzy, the club regroups at their clubhouse, located in a scrap yard fronting as a legitimate business, and it's here that we're reintroduced to Chucky.
Yeah. Chucky.
If you watched my video on Sons, then you already know how I feel about Chucky. Initially funny, he then became the sole source of humor and reached levels of buffoonery that were so high he eventually became grating. And he is just as annoying here. Matter of fact, why is he here? There's a lazy, unfunny throwaway line about the Sons losing him in a card game to the Mayans, but that makes even less sense. He adds absolutely nothing to this show, and I cannot see anybody in the Mayans caring enough to keep him around. At least in Sons of Anarchy, we saw that Tig and Gemma had a soft spot for him. Who out of the Santo Padre Charter has a soft spot for Chucky? A few more characters are added to the mix, including Miguel's head of security Nestor, Consigliere Devante Cano, and Miguel's mother Dita, portrayed by Gino Vento, Tony Plana, and Adam Maris respectively. The ending stinger for this episode is a huge laugh out loud moment. Coco is cruising past a row of prostitutes and eventually stops in front of one. She sticks her head through the window and says, "Boy, you must be really desperate." To which he replies, "Shut the f*** up and get in the car, Mom." Ada Luz Bla is a treasure as his mother, Celia. She is just the right amount of The next few episodes are primarily focused on the chess game between the LO and the cartel, while the Mayans just kind of hang out and run errands for Miguel. There's a real ADHD beginning to creep in at this point. Not a single story beat seems to be able to wrap in one episode, and that would typically be fine if there weren't already 3 or 4 giant overarching story threads looming across the series as it is. This is less world building and more a frantic stacking of subplots. It's beginning to rupture the foundation of this show. Not to mention, the Mayans keep getting pushed further and further back from the focus. Midway through the season, the writers start to flesh out some of the more interesting character details. We learn that Easy and Emily dated before he went to prison, and they were all set to start a family and have a baby before Emily got an abortion. The cop Easy accidentally shoots was taken down in hot pursuit of a criminal who murdered Easy and Angel's mother, Marisol. The catalyst for Easy's revenge was an unsolved murder mystery, and Easy fully intends on picking up where he left off, so go ahead and add that to the pile of plot points. Felipe is then revealed to have a mysterious past linked to Jose Galindo, Miguel's father. Hell, his real name isn't even Felipe, it's Ignacio Cortina. There's the war between the LO and the cartel. Wait a minute, Adelita's real name isn't even Adelita, it's Luisa Espina. And her father worked for Miguel's father, which means he knew Felipe. Ignacio. Good God, slow down! I actually do like some of the stuff we're getting, but the juggling act is becoming chaotic. This is so much to digest. It gets increasingly difficult to make an argument for the series being about the club, with all this external drama and branching paths. I do love the reveal of Felipe's shady past. He's shown to be far too lethal to just be a simple butcher, and the guy handles weapons like the Punisher. Something more definitely had to be there. This even serves to contextualize the death of his wife further, as it may not have been just a random accident, but more likely Felipe's karma catching up to him. Speaking of, the mystery of Marisol's death is not only compelling, but one that serves to flesh out Easy a lot better. He wasn't just a random thug who got arrested and then was thrown a DEA deal. He was a grieving son who couldn't let the death of his mother go, and happened to run into an unfortunate set of circumstances. This doesn't really justify Easy being a police informant, but his drive to keep his brother and his club safe from police retaliation, all while seeking closure for Marisol's death, does grant Easy a lot more empathy and serves to humanize him. It becomes a lot easier to root for Easy after you know about Marisol's death. And initially framing him as a snitch made that a very uphill battle. So kudos to the writers for pulling this off. I'm a huge fan of the Adelita reveal as well. I can't believe this series made 2 fake name twists work. Her real name is Luisa Espina, and when she was a little girl, she watched as her father, mother, and brother were gruesomely murdered and hacked to pieces by the Galindo cartel. She finds an old picture of her father with his friend and partner Ignacio Cortina, leading her to Felipe's doorstep. He explains that he had to fight his way out of Jose Galindo's company and that her father wasn't ready to leave yet. He promises that he'd never sell her father out, and she spares him to search for the truth. These twists really work for me. They don't feel coincidental. These are real sins of fathers passed down to their children. This bizarre twist of fate reaches out from the past and grabs the new generations of Reyes, Espina, and Galindo. The children unknowingly repeating this cycle of old sins that they're completely oblivious to. I felt these thematically relevant and super interesting. Each piece of info is integrated and paced out perfectly on a narrative scale. Now for some I really hated. The Mayans are background characters in their own show. I know next to nothing about Hank, Riz, Creeper, or Gilly. There's a real struggle to flesh out 2/3 of this club, and they're never gaining any footing through any of the new plot points being introduced. For another thing, I'm really not a fan of Cristobal's kidnapping to drive the narrative. I understand that the LO and Miguel need to clash, and that all does grow in an organic way due to the revelations that their fathers and Felipe are all connected. But, I'm sorry, you can't really garner sympathy for a cartel leader. Miguel is pure evil with no redeeming qualities. You can't trick the viewer when you're specifically showing them scenes of Miguel recruiting child soldiers or burning innocent civilians alive. There's no wiggle room or middle ground like there is with the club members. That redirects any sympathy you may feel for his plight at Emily and her past relationship with Easy. Easy cares about her and we want to see him win, so by extension, we root for Emily. The problem with that is that Easy and Emily have no chemistry, like absolute zero. Even in the flashbacks, I don't ever get the impression that this was a real relationship that they were invested in. If I can't draw sympathy for any of these characters, then why do I care if they get Cristobal back? The truth is, I kind of don't. Finally, there's the introduction of the worst character in Mayans, and that's Coco's estranged daughter, Leticia Letty Cruz. I loathe this character with every fiber of my being. She's obnoxious. She is a constant problem from the minute she is introduced to the closing seconds of the series. And the writing takes a nosedive every single time that she's on screen. The only thing worse than an awful character is a character that makes everyone around them awful by association. And that's about the only thing Letty does consistently. No offense to Emily Tosta, but even her voice is super grating. And that's owed in part to the mush of nonsense that is her dialogue. It's delivered in such an unpalatable and annoying way, like the most annoying way you could possibly deliver it. Why do these types of shows always insist on having at least one character like this? A character who just saps the fun from the screen every time they're here. I tried. I really did. But there was not a single scene where I found Letty even remotely tolerable, and she only gets worse from here. That's sort of the impression that this season imparts at this point. There's a few interesting plot threads and some great characters floating around, but if you were hoping for a focus on the club or a consistent narrative, it's just not happening. There's just enough to keep me coming back for more, but it's mainly due to some genuinely interesting mysteries and my love of the source material. Thankfully, the back half of the season starts to bring it together, and keeping up becomes less of a chore. Adelita reaches out to Miguel and sets terms for Cristobal's return. She makes good on her promise of returning the child to Miguel, but pulls an Uno reverse card and gets him detained at the border. After a genuinely thrilling scene of Miguel choking out an inmate and comparing him to a cockroach, when he's good, he's good. He's escorted to a room where he finally meets Adelita in the flesh. Turns out, Cristobal's kidnapping was a method for her to partner with Miguel in order to keep the LO thriving and to rebuild Mexico. Why do these two have more chemistry than Miguel and his actual wife do? This scene is fantastic. Cristobal and Miguel finally return home only to be arrested by Lincoln Potter. Yes, Lincoln Potter, did I stutter? This is one of my favorite reintroduction of a Sons of Anarchy character across Mayans. Ray McKinnon has not missed a beat. I loved him in the 4th season of Sons, and I love him even more here. He's just as quirky and spastic, but a bit more jaded and delightfully unhinged. He's plopped back into this world in the most Potter way I can think of. He's shown sitting on a scooter in front of the Mayans' clubhouse talking to a cat. I love it. Meanwhile, Coco attempts to bring his broken family back together and leaves Celia and Letty to their own devices, while he goes to handle club business that would surely be more interesting to see than Celia and Letty yelling at each other. But cool, I guess. Letty gets upset and fakes an injury, running to Coco and telling him that Celia hurt her, and Coco responds by killing his own mom. I mentioned Coco was insane, right? Side note, I will never get sick of watching the Falcon Punch he decks Celia with.
Jesus Christ, what the hell is wrong?
Easy discovering that Coco has killed Celia is phenomenal. It is the best scene of the season. Cabral is absolutely unhinged, but is strangely making sense. This all adds such a layer of nuance to Coco. You really begin to understand why he is the way he is and what he had to struggle through. Crazy how that comes off a scene where he killed his mom, but the writers nail it. I strongly encourage you to check it out. Not just because the writing is the strongest so far, but this talk leaves such an impact on Easy. It really molds his perception of club life and what it means. So much so that he calls back to it for pretty much the rest of the series. It's an integral piece of foreshadowing, as this really shapes the version of Easy we get in later seasons. Episode 8 is more of a breather, but we get to see Potter stretch his wings and chew the scenery while he's interrogating Miguel and Emily. It's further proof that you could put McKinnon with any actor and he'll find a way to bounce off of them really, really well. Potter tries to strong-arm Miguel into becoming a puppet of the US government, the same deal Jose signed leading to his eventual downfall and death. The Reyes brothers attempt to move Celia's body, but get pulled over and wind up coming face to face with Potter himself. This man is staying busy. Being the absolute demon that he is, Potter offers the brothers their freedom for a favor, exposing Easy's DEA deal in the process. Poor Angel. Cardenas gives a heartbreaking performance all episode. Whether he's screaming at Easy for betraying him, or accusing Felipe of choosing Easy's safety over his own, you really feel for the guy. Miguel, against Devante's protests, decides that the only way to beat Potter is to ally with Adelita. In order to earn trust, Adelita gives the control of LO, and by extension the streets of Mexico, over to Miguel, while he offers up Devante's head in exchange. Turns out a young and up-and-coming Devante was the one who led the attack on the Espina family, and it's finally time that Adelita got her closure. The show really makes a meal out of his death, but it is solidly done, and I do like that the cartel and the LO unite. This trims a lot of the fat from the series, and it eliminates some of the more needless back and forth, all while absolving Gilly, Coco, Easy, and Angel of their double cross. As a bonus, this allows Angel and Adelita, who've been developing a romantic relationship, to share a lot more screen time. I really like them together. Most importantly, it veers the central focus back to the club, and I really do think that's why this finale works so well. Potter calls in his favor to Easy and Angel. I laughed way too hard at the fact that he has them labeled as Bro 1 and Bro 2 in his phone, as he tasks them to kill Jimenez. For the time being, Angel forgives Easy, on the contingency that after they take care of Potter's favor, Easy leaves the club and Santo Padre as repentance for his betrayal. The brothers catch up with Jimenez and Angel pulls the trigger, killing him. Potter comes to tidy the mess and seemingly deletes all trace of Easy's DEA deal, granting Easy his freedom. We wind down with a party at the Mayans' clubhouse. Alvarez sits down with Bishop and reveals that he will be hanging up the Mayan cut in order to become Miguel's new consigliere. And it is honestly crushing to see Alvarez leave this all behind. Easy switches sponsors from Angel to Bishop and insists that he's staying here and staying part of the club, much to Angel's chagrin. The Sons then show up, most notably Happy and Quinn. As Easy overlooks the party, a look of horror appears on his face. He starts flashing back across all the clips we've seen of him chasing down his mother's murderer throughout the season. The killer's face had previously been obscured by a hood until now, as it finally falls down to reveal that the killer is... Happy? This is why I came back for Season 2. This erases so much of the ill will Season 1 leaves behind. How could you not be compelled to see how this plays out? Happy did it? Happy killed her? Our boy from Sons of Anarchy did this? What a smart and impactful note to end on. I was on the fence about continuing to watch until this, so it definitely had the desired effect. For all its faults and all of my complaining, Season 1 isn't really a bad season. It's just incredibly messy, and Sutter seems to have no restraint or subtlety left in the tank. This season really isn't about the club, and by the time he works to remedy that, it's over. I can't fathom anyone tuning in week after week to keep up with the Galindos. I was intrigued just enough. My balls tickled in just the right way to keep watching.
Oh my.
And despite my trepidation, I dived right into Season 2. From the jump, the premiere improves on so many of the negatives of Season 1. The club is way more involved. We even get to see members of other charters, which is a treat. Go figure, more characters based on the show's f***ing namesake alleviates many of my prior issues. The narrative is far less bothered with cartel semantics, though there is still a fair amount of that. This includes the absolute worst subplot of the series, but we'll cross that bridge. There's even a nice lore dump explaining the concept of the 3 Mayan kings. 3 members that act as equal shot callers across all of the MC. All were crowned by Alvarez himself, so that no one Mayan president would have too much power. One of these is Bishop, another a character original to Mayans named Canche, president of the Yuma Charter. The third is a returning Sons of Anarchy character, Oscar Ramos, who presides over the Stockton Charter. This is what I wanted out of Season 1. I know such an obnoxious amount of lore about the hierarchy of the Sons of Anarchy, both as an organization and as a club, and I craved the same for Mayans. Ivo Nandi is so boisterous as Ramos. I get a real kick out of the way he delivers his lines. That pairs really well with Jimmy Gonzalez's interpretation of Canche, who's more of a straight shooter. The fun doesn't stop there, as we also meet Solis, the Sahuarita Charter's president, and Ibarra, the Tucson Charter's president. Mike Beltran, what is you doing here? God, this is so fun. I will never turn away from an opportunity to meet more Mayan characters. I love their inclusion, and it adds such a layer of depth to the series. Potter, believing he has the Galindo cartel in his pocket, sets his sights on Adelita. And this aspect of the story is pretty fun too. It's rare to see Potter get one-upped, but Miguel has Potter on a wild goose chase hunting alleged LO locations, while a now pregnant Adelita runs Mexico. Potter even goes to the trouble of hiring a military merc unit led by a commander named Hobart, who stumbles upon and captures Minnie. The club sneaks in and wipes out half of Hobart's men to save her, leading Potter to believe that they may be getting deceived. Potter tasks his second-in-command, Agent Ana Linares, to keep a closer eye on Miguel. Sorry, Efrat Door getting more screen time had a direct correlation as to why this video took so long to come out. There's a fantastic scene of Happy laying eyes on Felipe and asking Chucky who he is. When Chucky replies with, "Easy and Angel's Pop," Happy replies with, "His boys are Mayans?" It's rare to hear a note of concern in Happy's voice, but he quickly makes his exit from Santo Padre as we find out he was tasked to kill both Felipe and Marisol, not just the Reyes matriarch. All in all, this is a banger episode that's better than like 60% of Season 1. The second episode decides that there's been far too much excitement and consistent pacing, and pulls a B-plot out of its ass that is the worst part of the series, bar none. This Agro Park plotline is the antithesis of entertainment. It is the anti-fun. This is the most egregiously shoehorned bullshit across all 5 seasons of this show. And I have never heard from a single soul that was even remotely interested in this stupid plotline. I feel about this the same way I felt about the Preacher subplot in Sons of Anarchy's 7th season. It's so unnecessary, so mind-numbingly boring. It does not belong here. This one crappy subplot is worse than the 5 crappy subplots found in the first season. Hell, It's worse than any of the messy subplots found in season 5. Yes, I am being 100% serious. Emily wants to construct an agriculture project meant to bring jobs and money to Santo Padre, and good lord, I am already bored to death, and that was literally half a sentence. Good! Here's my synopsis of it. Who the f cares? I cannot take Emily and her mob wife shtick seriously. I don't care that she's blackmailing city employees. I don't care if the cartel's business ventures succeed. They're the cartel. They're the bad guys. I don't care.
It don't matter. None of this matters.
This is presented with the same weight as the Reyes brothers getting answers for their mother's death from Happy. As far as screen time, it straight up outweighs every other narrative through line except for one. This is so infuriatingly bad. Made 10 times worse by the fact that a lot of fans have the gall to tell me Elgin wasted too much time on pointless subplots through his tenure as showrunner. Elgin's worst idea is 10 times better than this corny, meandering garbage. There's some salt for you. The rest of the episode is actually pretty good though. Angel and Easy reconcile after their blow up last season and decide to find the truth about their mother's death together. They head to Stockton to confront Happy, and along the way it's all quality stuff. Pardo and Cardenas play off each other so organically. I have no trouble believing their relationship. Through their ups and downs across Mayans, their bond is maintained so well and so naturally. Their interactions with the Swole Boys are hilarious and a sorely missed bit of levity. It's very indicative of early Sons of Anarchy humor, where there may not be a ton of tangible stakes, but you get to see the main characters flex their status and interact with their environment. The Swole Boys is an MC composed of meathead gym bros who ride crotch rockets, and it's a definite shot at people who took Sons of Anarchy too seriously. Angel cracks me up here.
Yeah, we get it. Next time we call the Slow Boys.
You just say?
Sorry, he's just picking up on the lack of cognitive energy coming our way.
What?
Exactly.
You poser douchebags. You guys watch some bullshit TV show and think a vest and 2 wheels makes you a club. Guessing. Brad and Todd here. Got all the totally awesome gym bros filling up the table.
Yeah. In the little monkey clubhouse in their mom's basement.
You don't know. Shut the up. Jesus, man, you guys are an embarrassment. Now go climb in your homocycles and get the out of here.
The following few episodes flesh out some story beats, and it stays mostly relevant without veering too far off course. Agro Park garbage aside, Cedrica Palomo, the new governor of Mexico, is introduced as an ally to Miguel and the LO, while Felipe is proving to have even more secrets as a connection with Dida is teased. I really admire the execution of this. We come to learn that Felipe and Dida had an affair, and that adds another layer into how these characters all just seem to revolve around each other. I love the restraint here. This is smoothly integrated simply by showing off some old love letters, and having Dida greet Felipe with an "Hola Ignacio." Those 2 simple words tell us everything we need to know. The fact that she greets him as Ignacio successfully ties her into what we already know about Felipe's past. And due to their age, we never have to question it because we trust the amount of time that's gone into it. This scene between them on the rooftop where all of this is getting teased out is great, with one caveat. We get the revelation of the series' most contentious plotline. Turns out that Miguel is actually Felipe's son. Yeah, there is no twist before or after this one that feels as soap opera-ish. I don't even hate it, it's just really jarring. It reminds me of the purposely over-dramatic twist that Dr. Nefarious would watch on Lance and Janet in Ratchet and Clank Up Your Arsenal. It is that out of place. How's that for a reference? This is one of the most divisive twists of Mayans, arguably the most, and I can see why. It'll be a while before this is brought to fruition in any meaningful way, and the execution is generally panned. The Reyes brothers finally catch up to Happy, and some brutal torture ensues. It makes my skin crawl when they carve off one of his smiley face tattoos. Happy holds strong until Angel threatens to kill his dog, adorably named Opie, and La Brava gives a great performance here, actually. It's a weird realization. I didn't fully grasp how little dialogue he had in Sons of Anarchy, even though he was in every single season. Happy goes on to explain that he used to be a gun for hire during his time as a nomad. The jobs would come in anonymously from Mexico through Packer and the Sons' San Bernardino chapter, and one fateful day, someone requested a hit on the Reyes parents. Happy screws this up, and when Easy gave chase after Marisol's murder, Happy feared it was a hitman from the cartel attempting to clean up his botch job. He then relocated to Charming and patched in with Sam Crow. The brothers are understandably shocked, and Happy ends his speech with a fantastic line. "Someone killed my mom. I put a bullet between his eyes." How does it feel, Sons fans? How does it feel to objectively see that Happy got more character development across one episode of Mayans than 7 seasons of Sons? Easy and Angel eventually let him walk, with Happy promising to deliver any more info that he could dig up. The season continues to move pretty swiftly, and during a meeting in Mexico between Adelita, Palomo, and Miguel, Hobart and his crew wind up blindsiding the trio. Adelita takes the fall to ensure that their secret alliance isn't found out by Potter. Hobart captures her, and the club, Palomo, and Miguel rally to save her in a pretty thrilling and action-packed sequence. They succeed, but Adelita refuses to go, offering herself up in order for the club and the cartel to continue to thrive. Her and Angel's goodbye is so heartbreaking. I really wanted them to scrape a win. Hobart begins to suspect that he and his crew are being duped and kidnaps Alvarez in order to get some answers. Man, it legit hurts to see Alvarez getting tortured in this manner. This is some pretty grueling and hard to watch stuff. The great action scenes keep coming as the club races to find him. And Miguel even tags along, which is admittedly pretty fun. His little back and forth with Nestor before they storm the warehouse is really entertaining. It's weirdly wholesome. Alvarez is rescued, Hobart is murdered, and all in all, well, not doing a ton to drive the plot forward. It is nice to have a couple of episodes where we see the club get to kick ass and just do some club stuff. It's a really refreshing change of pace to see Mayans feature a motorcycle club in a show about a motorcycle club. Because the writers are insistent on annihilating my hopes and dreams, more aggro park crap ends this episode instead of Padrino's rescue. Easy kills city clerk Marlon Buxar because Emily lost a bid on a property and... God, this is so lame! This aggro park slop drags down everybody with it. Even Pardo's acting in this case. Sure, Easy was a bit wooden in season 1, but I feel like Pardo really grew into the character over time. Except for when it comes to the aggro park stuff where he more often than not feels like a deer in headlights. Appropriately, I don't give a buck about any of this. Admittedly, Marlon does have a pretty funny line here though. He just stops and cuts through Easy's like tough biker shtick and goes, "Wait, you're doing all this for your old piece of ass?" Marlon don't play that simp, son. After a brief scuffle, Easy accidentally kills Marlon and frames it as a suicide and... hooray? Emily wins, and innocent people, as well as the viewing audience, lose. For as much guff as I've given Sutter and the writers throughout this video, I have to say, the last 4 episodes of this season are a slam dunk. The show hits the gas and never looks back. And Mayans really starts to come together as a series here. A rival MC, the Vatos Malditos, has moved in on the Mayans turf and begun human trafficking. Bishop laments the fact that the MC has fallen so far from who they were by running errands for the cartel, and decides to remind everyone who actually runs Santo Padre. Taza admits that prior to donning a Mayans patch, he was a member of the VM, and I really like this. It's a small touch, but even though we've never seen or heard of the Vatos before, there's an immediate investment in their club because a character we do know has shared history with them. This is all facilitated through Letty, which sucks, but it allows us to meet her friend Gabby, which is awesome. Gabby is a character I could write a short novel on. I am infatuated with her and the way that she's written. She is one of the best characters of the series, and I light up whenever she's on screen. Sulem Calderon is a national treasure. The Vatos have kidnapped Gabby's family, and Letty goes to Coco for help, who in turn informs the club that someone has moved in on their turf, and a major ass-kicking begins. The Mayans slaughter almost a dozen members of the VM, and are able to rescue everyone they've taken captive, including Gabby's mother and brother. There's a super touching moment near the episode's end when Gabby is reunited with her family, and the club watches on in the background. The importance of family connections is impressed onto everyone currently on screen, and that's a very consistent theme of the series. The cherry on top of all of this is when Letty grieves to Coco that they've never had the love of a mother and probably never will. His line here is ridiculous.
Love from a mother? Guess we never will.
That's because I killed her.
In episode 8, Easy deduces that the cartel is behind Marisol's murder and tasks Emily to dig into it. We shift from Rhea's matriarch to Rhea's patriarch as Potter goes on the offense due to Hobart's disappearance. He calls in a favor from Easy and Angel, telling them that he wants every scrap of information about Adelita's rescue. Otherwise, he'll call in ICE and have them deport Felipe. As they struggle with that, the club, along with Conche and Ramos, head to a meeting with the Sons of Anarchy, who are finally passing down their lucrative gun deal. Charming arrives, led by Chibs, with Happy, Quinn, and Montez in tow. Look, their reintroduction makes me smile, but the only way it could possibly be cheesier is if the music was replaced with Thin Lizzy's The Boys Are Back in Town. As much as it pains me to say it, Chibs is one of the worst Sons of Anarchy cameos across Mayans. Tommy Flanagan clearly does not want to be here, and while not quite phoning it in, there's a distinct lack of energy. The Sons want the weapons handled by the Vatos, unaware that the VM and Mayans are feuding. This escalates when Vatos President El Palo joins the sit-down, screaming that the Mayans killed 9 of his men and retribution is owed. Gregory Cruz is an absolute menace. Palo has such an intimidating presence. A deal is eventually worked out and all but Santo Padre depart. Palo, however, still has a score to settle. The Vatos double back and ambush the Mayans. God, the presentation is flawless. The scene is framed so well. It feels so claustrophobic and is legitimately tense. The dual perspective between half the club under fire outside while the remainder fight for their lives inside is shot so well. Riz is gunned down protecting Taza, and Coco takes a Molotov cocktail to the face, costing him his vision as Taza screams over the unresponsive body of Riz. The penultimate episode sees the club breathe a sigh of relief as Riz, despite being in critical condition, will live, and Coco's vision will gradually return, though never to 100%. That still leaves one major question on the table, spurred on by Coco. How will the Mayans retaliate? The Kings attempt to talk Bishop out of it, fearing that payback will ruin their new gun deal. They fairly reason that the club killed 9 Vatos while neither Riz nor Coco was fatally hurt. Bishop agrees, causing a split decision within the club. Since a president's vote acts as a majority in a tie situation, the club votes no on retaliation, infuriating Coco. God, Cabral's acting here is top tier. He's spitting all these lines about the Mayans becoming a corporation with a CEO, instead of this outlaw group focused on brotherhood. This runs the risk of sounding real hammy coming from anyone else, but Cabral delivers with such a fierce authenticity I was hanging on to every word. Meanwhile, Palomo digs up information on Potter, discovering that years ago, he was presiding over an important trial in Mexico, where he fell in love with and knocked up the star witness. Not only was he participant in something illegal, but he also has this secret family that hits Potter with a double whammy. She gives the info over to Miguel, who in turn wants to use it to negotiate Adelita's safe return. Emily catches wind of this, having been doing some digging of her own, and discovers that a check was indeed made out by the Galindos to order the death of the Reyes parents. She hands the Potter gold mine to Easy in exchange for him promising not to hurt Miguel. Having leverage on Potter seems to instill a new confidence in Easy, as he asks Gabby out on a date, who happily accepts. These two are infectiously sweet together, like, so sweet it felt like all of my teeth were going to fall out. No time for levity though, everything is about to go to hell. After insisting that Palo will not stop at merely injuring a couple of Mayans, Taza's intention to find and kill him is completely rebuffed by Bishop. We have no idea what the motive behind Taza's beef with Palo is, but we see just how far he's willing to take it. Taza slithers into Riz's hospital room, tearfully saying goodbye, before clamping down on his breathing tube and killing Riz. This is crushing. Taza was one of my favorites, and seeing Riz convulsing as the life leaves his body is horrifying. As if enough bombs weren't dropping, the Reyes family, as well as Emily, finally learned the truth about Marisol's murder. Dita, not Miguel, ordered the hit. Dita, Jose Galindo's wife, Felipe's former lover, mother of his child, killed Marisol. Needless to say, the stage for the finale is fit to burst, and they 100% stick the landing. Right out of the gate, the scene is gutting. Adelita is giving birth, and the camera slowly pans back to reveal that she's handcuffed to a hospital bed. Her frenzied swiping as she tries and fails to reach for her child makes my stomach turn. The club reels from the news of Riz's passing, as a furious Bishop reneges on the no retaliation vote. Conche and Ramos warn him that going after the Vatos puts the entire Mayans organization in jeopardy. The brothers confront Potter with their intel as Angel selflessly decides to use it to help Felipe rather than Adelita. Watching Potter fall apart is ridiculously satisfying. He's usually so composed and almost always has the upper hand. Seeing him unravel and prove to have a weakness is a ton of fun. Easy demands that he grants his parents US citizenship, and then leave his family and the Mayans alone for the rest of eternity. A request which Potter agrees to and also honors. Dita confesses to Marisol's murder and meets with Felipe, Angel, and Easy, declaring that one of the Reyes men needs to help her right a wrong. Easy seizes the opportunity and barbarically strangles her to death, then lighting her body on fire in order to frame it as a suicide. Let's remember this moment for when fans bitch and moan that Easy going dark makes no sense. He went dark out of nowhere. On that note, teasing Easy's inner darkness this early is a stroke of genius. And this very moment will have strong implications for his character down the road. Later, Miguel discovers Dita's body while Alvarez and Nestor discover motorcycle tracks near the scene of the crime. They opt to stay silent and let Miguel grieve while Alvarez covers the tracks. The Mayans hold a templo where they decide to fake Conche and Ramos out, making them believe that all with the Vatos has been peacefully settled. One more crucial decision is made and Easy is finally patched in. Sutter loves his take off the cut fake outs, but I'm not gonna harp on that. I love them too, and they do make me smile every single time. The club rides out and slaughters every remaining Vatos member except for Pablo, who seems to have escaped the carnage. Potter, unable to resist being a dick one last time, sends Angel a picture of his newborn child, expressing that they are both fathers who will never know their children. They just can't let my boy Angel win. It seems that things have mostly settled until we see Easy standing over a body. The reveal here is perfection.
You find Paulo?
Nope. Found him. Me.
Wow, so far Mayans is 2 for 2 for insanely compelling cliffhangers. Season 2 is a vast improvement over the first. The writing is tighter and more consistent, and the characters are finally starting to grow into their own. While there is some definite bloat, that stupid aggro park being the worst offender, the storylines are weaved through the overarching narrative in a much neater and less confusing way. I have a sincere excitement for what comes next, and the series is slowly but surely starting to find its footing. It's still hindered by its own identity crisis and its own personal struggle to differentiate itself from Sons of Anarchy, but the last 4 episodes of this season do such a fantastic job of expressing a fully realized vision. Shortly before the second season began, Sutter announced that he would be stepping down as showrunner at the end of it, leaving Elgin as the head honcho. He grandly expressed that it was time for the white man to leave the building. That turned out to be a bit more literal than he anticipated, because before the season was officially over, he was permanently fired from the series. There are a few differentiating accounts as to why exactly Sutter got fired. He initially claimed that he made a joke that didn't sit well with Disney, as the 20th Century merger had just happened and that absorbed Mayans' home network of effects. The studio executives alleged that he was abrasive and refused to turn in a script on time. The cast and crew said he was often miserable to be around, and would exhibit some uncomfortable behavior. Sutter eventually owned up to some of the chatter, calling himself an abrasive asshole to be around at the time, citing some inner turmoil including the loss of his spiritual center. He opened up about becoming detached from Mayans and leaving his cast and crew hanging. I stand by what I said about his firing being the best thing to happen to the series, but that doesn't mean I enjoyed watching him get screwed over. At the end of the day, this series and this universe are his vision, and I sympathize with him not being able to see it all through to the end. Sutter was let go in October of 2019, with the second season airing its finale that November. Thankfully, that was the only bump in the road for Mayans, because December of 2019 and the rest of 2020 were just smooth sailing for the world. Not one thing of note happened. Nothing. Yeah, so this was one of those turbulent points for the series that I talked about earlier. COVID-19 nearly killed this thing off. For a while, it wasn't even clear if a third season was going to happen, despite being greenlit a day before the finale of season 2 aired. Thankfully, roughly a year and a half later, Elgin got his shot, and in my opinion, he knocks it out of the park. So much of what I detested about the first 2 seasons was remedied here. This is by no means a perfect season, but this is leagues ahead of what Sutter was churning out. Mayans needed this to survive. Elgin breathed new life into the series, which finally began to cultivate an identity of its own. Elgin smartly uses the COVID time gap to his advantage. In-universe, it's justified through an off-screen border shutdown that impacts the entirety of Santo Padre, as well as Miguel's business ventures on the Mexico side. This allowed Elgin the liberty of cutting out unnecessary story beats while presenting characters in a more nuanced way, without needing to overload the viewer with backstory. Many of the characters undergo a personality change, but this all feels organic. The border shutdown has fractured the club as an organization and, understandably, put a ton of pressure on them, as this necessitates a new way to run their business. Nothing and nobody feels abandoned, and none of the changes feel like a betrayal of character. Elgin's debut season is more akin to a soft reboot of the series, and I admire his restraint when navigating this change. He's definitely more focused on world and character building, as well as fleshing out their relationships with each other. He's not necessarily aiming to spool together some grandiose narrative. He carefully crafts and rearranges the club as the story sees fit, meticulously adding layers to both members we know well and ones we never got to know under Sutter. The easy out here would have been to go balls to the wall and replicate Sutter's methodology to gain the audience's trust. Instead, he takes his time, moving at an expert pace while letting the narrative breathe before setting everything on fire, because man, does this season explode in the best way possible. Every single aesthetic choice is better. The cinematography is less bright and duller visually, but it's more subtle. There's a quieter, more oppressive vibe. The music is a lot less corny and distracting. It gels much better with the new dynamic Elgin has built for this world, and it's contextualized in a more authentic way. The dialogue is far more naturalistic and is better representative of the characters' backgrounds and culture. I love the dichotomy this presents between the uglier chapters of America's history and the horrible, disgusting choices the members of the Mayans make while masquerading those choices as freedom. The characters really begin to develop into the most fully realized version of themselves. Bishop especially feels like a real person. I liked him during the Sutter seasons, but he often felt like a cardboard cutout of what you'd expect a motorcycle club president to be like. Hank and Gilly get a lot more to do. They start developing some wit, some sass. The club finally gets their time to shine, and better yet, become more authentic, shedding many of the generic biker cliches. I don't know, man. There was a royal bitch fest from Sutter loyalists who claimed that Elgin sank the ship before season 3 was even halfway over. I can't, for the life of me, understand how one watches Mayans and comes away preferring Sutter's "let's do Sons again, but Mexican" approach to Elgin's. It's fine if you do, but I am telling you, you are missing out on some beautiful material by turning your back on the Elgin seasons. The divide between showrunners unfortunately gave rise to some of the most delusional bastards I have ever had the displeasure of debating with. Grown adults were, without a trace of self-awareness, sarcasm, or irony, telling me that Elgin was horrible and the only way that this show could be redeemed was if Kurt Sutter came back and revealed that Jax Teller was alive and he was building a secret Sons of Anarchy chapter that would come back and kill all the Mayans. This is the caliber of dumb I had to deal with while trying to have internet discourse about this show. I'm trying not to eat up valuable video time by being salty, but where else could I really complain about all of this? Elgin wastes no time in catching us up in an easily digestible and believable way. Santo Padre has basically gone to hell. The border shutdown killed the agro park. Thank you. And that project imploding means that the jobs, money, and resources promised from it went up in flames as well. A DOJ crackdown also tanks most of the Mayans' resources. Warehouses, the underground tunnel system, moving anything across the border becomes damn near impossible, cutting their H distribution by 70%. All in all, things seem pretty rough for everyone, and the characters are dealing with the shutdown in varying degrees of distress. We catch up with Easy, Gilly, Angel, and Coco. And this bar scene brings the Mayans back into the story in such excellent fashion. For one thing, the music. Maybe I'm just biased, but Elgin won me over in the first few minutes of this premiere, as anybody playing Motorhead will. The dialogue lends itself to the exposition so perfectly, you never feel like the show's talking down to you. We gain some insight into Coco's struggle with his vision, and learn just how far he's actually beginning to spiral out. More media should do exposition via roast session. This feels so natural. I love Gilly relentlessly giving Coco but immediately having his back against the soldiers at the bar. Angel picking up the chair to use as a weapon as he and Easy join the fight without question is also a super funny touch. The Reyes brothers' dynamic has gotten even better. It's legitimately heartwarming, hilarious, and relatable. Cardenas feels a lot less stereotypical and less exaggerated, while Pardo feels less wooden, like he's truly embraced playing Easy. He seems super comfortable here. I treasure these two. We meet Stephanie, aka Nails, played by Justina Adorno, one of the bar girls working at the clubhouse who begins a relationship with Angel. We then meet new prospect, good ol' what the f*** Steve, played by comedian Momo Rodriguez. Steve just looks like he belongs here, like this is what the average superfan of these shows is like. I am absolutely aware of what I look like, and I still stand by what I said. Paulo is alive, and he phones up Montez as the answer to last season's cliffhanger is finally revealed. The dead son turns out to be a previously unheard of member named Tommy, Montez's cousin. He was invented purely for this series and was never seen or heard about until this very moment. Boy, did this not go over well.
How come we never met you before?
I've been away on business.
I never even heard of you.
On the one hand, I can understand why fans would hate this. It feels inconsequential, and it initially plays like Elgin didn't care about the reveal. It feels almost disrespectful to have waited nearly 2 years to find out that it just really doesn't matter who the dead Sons of Anarchy member was. On the other hand, I kinda think that this whole twist was unfairly represented. Understandably so, fans viewed this as the big mystery for the next season. But I never felt like it was supposed to be. Obviously, it was meant to spark interest and to compel you to return for season 3. but I always viewed it as more of a catalyst to justify Palo and Montez's involvement with the Mayans. It never read to me like it was supposed to be some season-long mystery. Elgin does this sort of expectation subversion quite a few times during his run to various degrees, and barring one or two exceptions, I enjoy it. You don't necessarily need every reveal to be this big dog and pony show. Some things should just come and go to serve the bigger picture. I don't love that the dead Sons of Anarchy member winds up being an unknown. But with everything else at play here, I don't really hate it either. Let me ask a genuine question. I promise I'm not rage baiting. I want a legit answer. Would you have been satisfied if this was a familiar character? If this was Tig, or Happy, or Chibs, would that make this better? Would you not have felt ripped off that a long-term Sons of Anarchy character was slaughtered in this manner? What fixes this? I truly don't believe that Elgin could have won here no matter how he played it. Due to the COVID delay, fans were forced to stew with this for almost 2 years. Expectations reached a high that couldn't really be matched by reality. Easy takes Gabby out on a date and... my god. These two are one of the most likable on-screen couples that I've ever watched. The Easy Gabby material just doesn't miss for me. I cherish them, and I was always left wanting to see more of them. Whether it was a silly moment, a wholesome moment, a tense moment, it didn't matter. Pump this directly into my veins. I watched all of their scenes with the gayest look on my face. I'm straight up talking like this. Like the entire time. We closed the episode with a fantastic scene of Santo Padre confronting the rest of the Mayans. Concha and Ramos are displeased and losing patience. Sick of minuscule H runs, and still angry at Santo Padre for ruining the gun deal, they demand a bigger quantity of H from Bishop and the rest of the club. He responds in the most Bishop way possible. This is really indicative of who his character becomes from this point. For me, this was a very promising start. Elgin does set up a ton of stuff, almost as much as Sutter did, but it feels more contained and more focused. The club is absolutely the center of this world, not the cartel. The Mayans and the consequences of their selfish actions take center stage. And that kind of selfishness drives the plot in such an enthralling way. Elgin goes to great length to keep reminding you that you are indeed dealing with a club of shady outlaws. The downward spiral of the Santo Padre charter is super compelling, especially considering that they're the ones meant to hold this entire organization together. Episode 2, The Orneriness of Kings, sees Adelita released from custody, the fate of her child unknown. She returns to the LO and is barely reactive. Barada gives such a subtle and broken performance. This once proud lioness has had everything ripped from her and was seemingly abandoned. It's straight up depressing to see a vulnerable, defeated Adelita. It's a side of her that we've never seen before. She springs to life for a brief moment upon realizing that Minnie has left the group. This utterly breaks her, and it's gutting. Adelita's sole lifeline, her protege and surrogate daughter, gone. Just like her baby. Speaking of defeat, we catch up with Emily, who's suffering a similar fate to Adelita. Miguel's far too preoccupied with crying about his mom and porking Palomo to pay any attention to her. He contacts Emily's sister Erin to help with Cristobal and the household, and my god, Holland Roden is phenomenal. She's such a crass and crude contrast to the prim and proper Galindos. Every interaction with her is a blast. Erin is an absolute treat, and she's a character that just steals the show every time she's on screen. We switch focus to Coco, whose addiction has gotten so bad that raiding a commune of crackheads living in a place called Meth Mountain doesn't sound like a ridiculous endeavor. In desperation, Coco holds their leader Butterfly at gunpoint, demanding every pill he has. Coco is quickly overpowered and caught. Seconds before being incapacitated, he hears a familiar voice and sets eyes on Hope, an addict we met in the early episodes of Season 2. I will go to bat for Coco's arc this season any day of the week, no pun intended. Cabral is on another level here, and Coco's story is one of alluring contradictions. It's complicated, but easy to relate to if you've struggled with addiction before. It's ugly, dark, and secretive, but by that same token, It's beautiful and vulnerable and honest. This is such a unique perspective for a show like this. I got choked up several times during Coco's back and forth at Meth Mountain. And it's testament to Elgin's commitment to fuse reality with fiction. Cabral blurs the line between actor and character all season long, and he hits a home run every single time. This is such a prevalent theme this season, and it often ranks amongst its best moments. Bishop abusing alcohol to deal with his loss, Coco using drugs as an escape from pain, Emily popping pills to cope with her unmanageability, and the lack of control she has over her family. Elgin swings big and hits hard over and over again. Control is a huge theme, and we're watching characters continuously struggle with it or abuse it to gain power. Santo Padre itself, in a bid to control the Mayans, devises the One King plan, which sets their course for the remainder of Season 3. Easy appeals to Bishop's sensibilities by proclaiming that Santo Padre needs to be the center of the Mayan universe, and that can't work if there are 3 kings. Santo Padre plans to obtain enough heroin to appoint Ibarra and Tucson as the main pipeline, which in turn would ice out Canche and Ramos, stripping them of both their power and their crown. Episode 3, Overreaching Don't Pay, opens on a flashback that makes my skin crawl. Child Coco shoots up Celia with heroin as she makes him promise not to be like his mama. In the present, adult Coco wakes up to find himself being shot up by Hope, who promises that this will ease his pain. I don't love Hope's character, but I don't mind her as a guide through Coco's fall from grace. Vanessa Giselle has a likable innocence that she plays well, despite Hope's dirty background. There is one Meth Mountain character that I really love though, and that's Isaac. I can gush about J.R. Bourne's ability as an actor all day. I am absolutely mesmerized by him. Ha! Gay! It's so hard to make these types of characters work, but Bourne is a freaking masterclass. Isaac's this brutal, insane, quirky, tortured weirdo, and it's so difficult to write for characters of this archetype because the shtick usually wears thin fast. You can't even really write this, not completely. The magic really happens through Bourne's delivery. His energy is second to none and his facial expressions are otherworldly. This caliber of performance relies on an actor who has a supernatural level of knowledge about the character that they're going to play. And Bourne never disappoints or phones it in. I believe every word, every action, every implication and preconceived notion is challenged. As much of a bastard as he is, I couldn't wait to see him again. Meanwhile, Bishop and Easy meet with Alvarez, asking him to secure them 250 keys of heroin. Alvarez praises Bishop, believing that he's doing so in order to make amends with Canche and Ramos. Alvarez sanctions this through his associate Juan Denver, and this is the best bit part I've ever seen in my life. Yes, it is exactly what it sounds like, and I adore him.
Alvarez sent you?
Juan Denver.
Did you just say his name was Juan Denver?
Yeah, I think he did.
Where exactly are we going?
Take me home, country roads.
Dude, are we getting kidnapped?
Baby, you look good to me tonight.
What did he just say?
What the f you just say? Must be the sunshine on my shoulders.
On the wings of a dream.
Thank God I'm a country boy.
What the is happening right now?
Something I really admire about Elgin is that no matter how dark the story gets, he never lets it become so bogged down that he forgets to have fun. Juan Denver and his interactions with Angel and Easy are a terrific example, as well as a later scene with Emily and Aaron where Aaron coins the phrase, "you fat little dicked walrus." The paced reintroductions find us back at Felipe's doorstep, where he's been rotting away in bed and appears to have given up on life. The solution? Stick an over-energetic and bubbly Gabby with him, to pester him and break him out of his shell. I like it, I love it, I want some more of it. There's a great balance of humor that never overshadows the stakes. The club is gearing up to move the heroin across the border when Coco arrives, desperately searching for Gilly. This scene is so raw and honest it hurts. But it's a great example of their bond and what club brotherhood is supposed to be about. Coco pleads for help, with Gilly initially refusing, stating that nothing's really changed and he can't keep covering his absences from the club any longer. Coco tearfully interjects with, "It's different this time. I broke a promise." It's a fantastic callback to the opening of the episode, and it goes a long way in making you believe that Coco might actually be done. Before the club can depart, Happy and Montez arrive with a warning. The peace between clubs is fracturing, and the Mayans are no longer allowed to ride through Sun's turf without a call. There is a gem of a line in this scene, one of my favorites.
What actions would those be?
Couple dozen dead Mexicans.
And Jack's teller's last wishes. Disrespected.
What's Jack's teller?
Who
gives a
Yes! It's such a small detail, but it's perfect. Jax gets shoehorned into the dialogue every once in a while. Everyone treats his name with such reverence, but let's be honest, that's for us in the audience. It makes no sense with most of the characters on this show. I believe that Alvarez cares and has respect for Jax. I believe that OG Mayans from Oakland or Stockton might care. But why the would Bishop care? Why would younger generation Mayans like Gilly or Angel or Easy care? The club sets out to smuggle the heroin, but before they can finish, Border Patrol shows up. In a last-minute diversion by Steve, the Mayans are able to hide the drugs and escape. This presents a new problem, as by now, Alvarez, Conche, and Ramos will realize that the heroin wasn't secured for the greater good of the club, but rather for Santo Padre, making them all marked men. The episode ends on such an unhappy note with many dour returns. The Mayans return to the clubhouse, empty-handed and having failed. Coco returns to Meth Mountain, cuddling up with Hope and tragically muttering, "I don't want to," before inevitably using again. And Adalita returns to Angel, while he's naked and trying to bang nails. Her timing is impeccable. The 4th and 5th episodes are slow movers, but again, Elgin has a great way of allowing the narrative to breathe, while allowing the audience to get to truly know these characters by being in tune with what they're feeling. It stays grounded and escalates in a fit enough manner where it never feels like he's just rushing us through one plot point to get to the next one. The club, reeling from almost getting snagged by Border Patrol, devises a new method of smuggling the drugs across, the play being the bridge over the river Kwai move. A move that involves literally jumping the border wall using ramps on either side of it. This is the perfect amount of ridiculous. Between all that, Pablo kills Montez, and I gotta hand it to them. It's a ballsy move to kill an original Sons of Anarchy character in the spinoff. Pablo dumps the body on Taza's bike, adding a little more intrigue and mystery to whatever bizarre history they seem to share. Taza, who makes nothing but terrible decisions for the rest of the series after he kills Riz, decides to keep it to himself and bury Montez's body in a salt drum. Miguel, still grieving after Dita's death, finds a picture of her and Felipe together and decides to confront the Reyes patriarch. I love this scene. Anytime these two actors get to have a back and forth, it is stellar work. And to Felipe's credit, he tells Miguel most of the truth. This probably would have been the time to mention that, Miguel is his son, but this is an otherwise great scene. Felipe cops to being in love with Dita, and in a surprisingly wholesome move, Miguel even lets him keep the photograph. It's an unexpectedly wholesome gesture from him. The Kwai move somehow succeeds, and the club successfully delivers all 250 keys to Ibarra. Unfortunately for him, when arriving back at the Tucson clubhouse, he finds Conche waiting for him. Easy takes Gabby out on the town, and God, the closing scene of episode 5 is masterfully done. It's framed in such an intriguing way. I love the way it's shot.
Stay down!
Can't Pray a Lie was a clunker episode for me upon my initial viewing, but I've since learned to appreciate it. I didn't fully comprehend that Easy's hospitalization was the key framing device to putting everyone on opposing sides of an impending civil war. Angel's reactions the entire episode are magnificent. He's gone from losing his baby to potentially losing his brother. He's pissed and everyone is going to know it. He is crashing out so hard.
Oh my god, oh my god.
He's throwing around, he's threatening to kill fellow members of his MC in front of cops, he's smoking in the waiting room, all culminating in his cocking his gun and getting ready to settle the score right then and there. He heads to the room of the Stockton Mayan that assaulted Easy and runs into Nestor. Angel is then informed that Alvarez personally set up protection for the Mayan. This is a simple and effective way of informing us that Alvarez found out about the heroin double-cross. Bishop instructs the semi-healed Easy to take Gabby and lie low till this is all figured out. Bishop and Alvarez, after some mounting tension, finally confront each other, and this is brutal. It's all verbal, but each man is aiming to let the other one know how this is all gonna play out. You can really feel the hurt in Bishop's voice. Irby is on fire here.
Everything you f***ing had. I built this charter into the center of the f***ing universe, and you go and saddle me with those two f***ing clowns, Conche and Ramos. And they come at me, and they come at my guy, and you're gonna go and f***ing protect them? I f***ing sacrificed everything. Everything! And you sent me down here to this dead f***ing town. I mean, if we hadn't f***ing been here, if you hadn't have made me come.
I'm sorry, Primo. I know what day it is.
Man, that's what f***ing day it is.
And don't you ever forget who built this universe you think you're the center of.
Speaking of Bishop, it's been pretty clear all season long that he's been burdened by some kind of pain. And it's here that we finally discover what that is. There's a horrifying revelation that he had a young son named Aiden, who died in a car accident at the age of 3 as a result of Bishop's move to Santo Padre. I understand why this characterization of Bishop rubbed some folks the wrong way. The version we see under Elgin is a completely different character than the version we got under Sutter. The two don't sync up at all. Sutter's interpretation was of a president who was in control and strong-willed. Elgin's is one of a man that's detached, brooding, rash, and power-hungry. Even Michael Irby has gone on record saying that he feels Bishop's character was done a disservice. But the truth is, I love it. Dickhead Bishop is one of the best characters on Mayans. This version is more introspective and intriguing. It speaks volumes about Irby's strength as an actor, that he didn't even enjoy playing this version of Bishop, yet still delivered some of the most powerful content on the show. Elgin can overindulge in this from time to time, but overall, this more humanized approach to storytelling went a long way in my enjoyment of the series. The ramifications of this conversation are what leads Bishop to take things into his own hands. He gives the green light to Angel and Gilly to kill the Stockton Mayans upon their release from the hospital, effectively kicking off the Mayan Civil War. This is why I enjoy Bishop's downward spiral. Santo Padre started the fracture between charters. Make no mistake, this is all their fault. Instead of making peace with the people that they call brothers, Bishop, in desperation and fueled by ego and feelings of betrayal, doubles down instead. The ensuing chaos only gets worse in a banger of an episode called What Comes of Handling Snakeskin. Santo Padre has gone completely off the rails, and the show opens with them assaulting members of the Stockton Charter, beating them half to death while trashing most of their businesses. Tommy Gaeta, a prominent Stockton member, catches a brutal beatdown in front of his girlfriend Trini, as Santo Padre hunts for Ramos. The club is lying low in a hotel during all of this and prepares by calling a meeting with the president of Oakland, Diaz, an OG and co-founder of the club. Elgin just keeps piling on lore and I will eat it up all day long. Getting to meet a co-founder of the club is a great way to provide some insight into just how insane this situation has become. We're fleshing out the people who built this thing, who were there from the inception of it, as the entire organization threatens to collapse in on itself. I mean, you know, this stuff is okay, but I just really wish there was some more aggro-park bull, I said without an ounce of salt. The conversation Bishop has with Diaz about restoring the club to its former glory is so much fun. He's trying so hard to justify his own terrible decisions, and you can just tell that Diaz is not buying any of this. Easy and Steve have a fantastic conversation in this scene as well. Steve's a pretty goofy guy generally, so it's nice to gain some insight into his aspirations and commitment to the club. Diaz, growing wary with Bishop, gives Ramos a call, and members of Stockton and Oakland flood the hotel as an all-out brawl ensues. Santo Padre, backed by Tucson, put on a hell of a show. Fists are flying, blood spilling, and I love Gilly's little yeah as he sees this mob of other club members rushing towards him. Vincent Vargas is so much fun, man, I'm telling you. This all culminates in Steve accidentally shooting and killing Gaeta. That guy is just having a bad day, bro. The police show up and Ramos seems to slip away once again. Santo Padre pulls one over on him though, as Ramos's police escort is led by Officer O'Grady, a corrupt cop in the club's debt. John Piricello is so great as O'Grady here. For anyone who's ever talked music with me, this is basically how it goes. And it's legitimately laugh out loud funny. O'Grady pulls over as Easy sneaks up and mercilessly shoots Ramos in the head. In the interim of the Civil War, Adelita finds Minnie and reclaims the LO, while Coco, after a fight with Letty, links up with Hope and ODs. Hope manages to save him as the pair vow to get clean and stay far, far away from Meth Mountain. With one Mayan King down and one more to go, the club's focus shifts to Conche. The club meets with Solis to determine where Conche might be hiding, and learn that Ibarra was stripped of his patch, as Bishop swears to restore him as a member of the club once Conche is handled. Taza's secret and history with Palo is finally brought to light, and it turns out that Taza's gay?
I just want to know if this motherfucker is gay or not.
He is. I'll answer that for you. Give him a beer.
But you're not him.
It's a bit anticlimactic. He was in love with Palo's younger brother David, and when Palo found out, he slit David's throat in order to spare the family the shame. Taza then patched out of the Vatos, and a mutual hatred that would last decades formed between the two. It's a little egregious when you realize that Taza killed Riz, started a war with the Vatos, and imploded a lucrative gun deal that impacted the entire organization of the Mayans that led up to a civil war just to cover up the fact that he likes dick.
Dude, are you gay or not? Do you like dick or not?
That being said, I don't know. I don't really hate it. This would be stupid if it was one of the younger guys in the club, but given that Taza is an older generation biker, one that was most definitely around when this sort of thing was prohibited in real life motorcycle clubs, I guess it's fine. It's at least on brand considering how unshakably selfish most of Santo Padre is. I was just expecting more? Elgin does this a few times. It's not necessarily that the twist is bad, but it gets a pretty mute reaction. Like, I'm waiting for another layer to be added to the rear end of this that just never comes. Yes, that sentence was intentionally written that way. And speaking of coming, I'm not great at segues. Nails tells Angel that she's pregnant, and his reaction is so heartbreaking. Right before she tells him this, she's trying to have a conversation with him about how she thinks they might be a mismatch, and that she doesn't feel like he cares about her. And Angel's just shrugging it all off and trying to get laid. Nails drops the pregnancy bomb expecting Angel to be angry, and instead he fully embraces the news. It's sad how quickly and how hard he leans into it. I don't believe that he has any sort of love for her. He just sees an opportunity to replace what he's lost, while she confuses it for commitment. Miguel takes the call from the medical examiner that he's been dodging all season long, and finds out that there was some foul play in Dita's death, piecing together that Emily was involved in some capacity. He tasks Alvarez to kill Easy, instructing Nestor to keep an eye on him and make sure he does it. then attempts to kill Emily by spiking her wine with Xanax. He backs out at the last second and saves her, but death is looming large this episode anyway. Adelita and Minnie brutally kill Palomo, and have a pretty emotional farewell, with Adelita entrusting the LO to Minnie. Hope bails on getting clean, and Coco runs after her. Right back to Meth Mountain and right back into Isaac's clutches. Isaac immediately captures him and begins to re-poison him with heroin. The club, meanwhile, decides to host a celebration and kick Coco out for his inactivity all season, replacing him with Steve, who's finally gotten his dream of being a full patch. Murder doesn't sit well with Steve, as he can't seem to stop thinking about killing Gaeta, really embodying that old saying of be careful what you wish for. Let's be honest, nothing about Steve's character was ever cut out for this life, and I don't even entirely know how he made it to the prospect stage. That being said, it's still disheartening to see him visibly struggle. He tries to talk to Easy, who's reeling from a messy fight with Gabby, and Easy barks at him, instructing him to put those feelings away and bury them deep, because this is who we are and this is what we do. Easy was Steve's only sympathetic ear. And to watch the hurt in his eyes as he realizes that the one guy he relied on for help can't ease his mind is crushing. Angel announces his engagement to Nails, and as the party reaches its apex, Steve turns to Easy, and with one haunting sentence, "I'm sorry, Easy, I don't think I can put it away," puts a gun in his mouth and pulls the trigger. What the f***, Steve? Some argue that the character was just cannon fodder because the club was at war, but I disagree. I'm not saying it's anything super profound, but Steve was the normal one. He was the audience's anchor back to reality. All the other guys have killed in battle. That's the norm for them. When Steve gets his first real taste of their world, it challenges every perception he had of the club. He idolized them after all. Despite his short stay, I did enjoy seeing Steve, and I am sad to see him go. Naturally, this shocks everyone and Easy, partially in his desire to reclaim the life that he was supposed to have, partly for the guilt he feels over Steve, runs to Gabby and frantically says that he chooses her, not the club. This leads us into our finale, chapter the last, Nothing More to Write, and what a hell of a finale it is. At this point, it was still up in the air on whether Elgin's inaugural season would be his only season. But a week before this finale aired, FX gave the green light for another season. Now, considering no one knew that was going to happen, Elgin wrote this as a tentative series finale, which some might argue is better than what we actually got, but I'ma call shenanigans. Adelita tracks down Linares, sparing her life in exchange for Potter's whereabouts. Potter makes an appearance for the first time all season, calling Miguel to let him know that he seized all of his assets on both sides of the border, and that he's sending a horde of federal agents to his location as they speak. The LO had framed Miguel for Palomo's murder, and fed Potter a trail of crumbs that he was more than happy to follow. Before he can even gloat over his victory, Potter, currently on sabbatical in Mexico with his family, is confronted by Adelita, who threatens his wife and son. He reveals that her child is indeed still alive, and convinces her not to kill him. Miguel calls Emily and instructs her to grab Cristobal and meet him so they can flee as a family. Having pieced together that Miguel tried to kill her, this dumbass just left the empty wine glass with pill residue for her to find. She instead stops in to say goodbye to Easy before leaving town. Ironically, this is the first time I've ever felt like they had chemistry. Her monologue about there being a misreading of their cards is fantastic work. Despite my iffiness on the character herself, Sarah Bulger is typically doing an excellent job. This is played back to back with another heartbreaking goodbye as Gabby bids Felipe farewell, intending to head to Lodi to attend nursing school and bring Easy with her. In a gut-wrenching move, Felipe convinces her to go to Lodi alone. These two's chemistry has been enticing all season long, but it's on another level here. You can see the hurt and the sting of betrayal in Felipe's eyes. He substituted Gabby for his dead wife, and he fears the same end for her. Remember this moment for when fans bitch that Easy went dark out of nowhere. It doesn't make any sense. Felipe's warning isn't about the life of the club dragging her down. It's not a metaphor for the town of Santo Padre. It's specifically about Easy. Because Felipe knows about the evil that lives in his son that we've yet to see. Poor Gabby is so heartbroken, but the bigger takeaway here is that she believes him. As much as she loves Easy, as committed as she says she is to a life with him, she knows she's not being lied to. Outside of Yuma, Gilly, Easy, and Angel lay in wait, having planted a bomb intended to take out Kanche. He arrives, but in an unforeseen turn of events, he's accompanied by his young son. Angel insists that he's not killing a kid today, so Easy moves in for a closer look, intending to blow Kanche to hell the second the kid is out of the blast radius. With the coast seemingly clear, Easy presses the detonator, as, in a split second, Kanche's son appears in frame right as Easy locks eyes with Kanche. Santo Padre succeeds, and the crown now belongs solely to Bishop. Having cleared all loose ends, Easy and Angel have one last drink at the clubhouse. Easy states his intention to leave, unaware that Gabby is already long gone. The back and forth between the brothers is amazing. In no uncertain terms, Easy looks at Angel and says, "I would have killed that kid." Remember this moment for when fans bitch at, "Oh, Easy went dark out of nowhere, it doesn't make any sense, it happened so fast." He laments that the cut fits him too well, and that he thinks his overachieving as a child was his mother's way of keeping him distracted, having sensed Felipe in him. The brothers say goodbye as Easy rides to meet Gabby. Ibarra meets with Diaz, claiming that Bishop now wants what all the Mayans want, that being peace. Diaz prepares to dress Ibarra back into his cut, as Kanche slinks into the corner of the screen, having survived the explosion. Such an excellent reveal, nice and quiet, but effective, and Diaz follows up with a great line.
Your trespasses and your king.
This cements Santo Padre as the villains of the story. There's no escaping that now. Everyone has suspicions about Ramos, but no one can 100% with certainty confirm that Santo Padre was behind it. But Kanche surviving the explosion is proof that the devil was always in the next room. Easy discovers that Gabby has left, and you can see his commitment to the club override everything else in his brain in real time. Pardo doesn't speak a word, but his reaction is immaculate. Gilly single-handedly storms Meth Mountain like the human tank that he is, and rescues Coco, who insists that they take Hope with them. Isaac has no intention of letting this happen, so Coco cathartically shoots him in the throat. Butterfly, not wanting any more bloodshed or bodies, allows them all to leave peacefully. Taza confronts Paulo, and Paulo dies in such a wet fart occasion. This is a prime example of one of my major criticisms of Elgin's writing. There's so much build-up for Paulo. He's been a menace to watch all season, and there's been a ton of genuine interest behind his character. But in a bid to subvert expectations, Elgin just kinda fizzles out. Sutter had a tendency to be over the top at times, but the payoffs were usually big, loud, and at the very least, they were memorable even if he couldn't always stick the landing. Elgin has a lot of trouble sticking the landing, and will often use deaths like these to springboard the next subplot. Paulo was just too cool to go out in such a forgettable, bland manner. There's no pomp and circumstance to his death at all, and ultimately it just feels sloppy. Taza heads back to the clubhouse and confesses his crimes to Bishop, starting with his murder of Riz. The scene then switches to Easy sitting outside of the clubhouse, and Lord have mercy, what an epic ending. I take back every bad thing I just said about Elgin, he's a genius. Needless to say, I cannot grasp how one could watch the first 2 seasons and not be completely hyped by what the third gave us. This is every bit as epic, and it's better written in just about every way. The performances, the casting, the narrative, the lore, everything is more fleshed out, tighter, it's more compelling. Mayans is finally starting to come into its own, and I don't think this could have or would have happened under Sutter. Elgin isn't perfect, but you'll never convince me that he mishandled or ruined the potential of the series. This is captivating work, and the series is showing some real promise. By his own admission, Elgin wrote himself into a corner with this finale, not thinking he'd get another season. So, the question remains. After a successful and gripping season, pumped full of new life, would he be able to capture lightning in a bottle twice? I'm happy to report that Elgin absolutely nails it. Season 4 is even better than the third. And this premiere is not only the best episode of Mayans, but in my objective opinion, can go toe-to-toe with Sons of Anarchy's best stuff. The transition from the recap to the action is seamless. I am obsessed with this shot. This entire episode is a frantic hellscape. It's expertly done. Despite the impossible odds, seriously, like every single member of the Mayans is here and aiming to kill, you come to believe that Santo Padre can do it. Their survival doesn't feel far-fetched, and the pacing and action are handled with the utmost level of care. This is damn near a season's worth of action in a single episode. It's a perfect counter to fans who criticize Mayans for being too talky. This not only scratches every itch, but the action is contextualized perfectly. There's so much going on. And you'd think that this situation would overwhelm any sort of character development, but it never does. An all-out battle winds up being the perfect backdrop, and it's admirable, because for the entire hour, they don't cut away or focus on anything else. We stay right here. The way this scenario carefully integrates everyone into the action is genius. This isn't just Santo Padre. It's a collaboration between them, Lobo, members of Tucson, and all the bar girls, including Nails, Jess, and Cielo. I never know what to collectively refer to all the girls as. In Sons of Anarchy, the female hangarounds were called crow eaters, so I guess the Mayans equivalent would be called, I don't know, bean eaters? Wait, no, you can edit that out, right? The club springs into action and immediately starts setting up defenses, using furniture to block the windows and taking stock of their ammo and weapons, a great chunk of which is missing since Gilly stole them to use in his meth mountain raid. Bishop stops Taza from killing himself, and Taza utterly gives up. He's propped himself on a bar stool and laments how screwed they are. Bishop's trying so hard to control the situation, this dire fight that he and Easy have put the club in. He's working more to reassure himself than he is the rest of the club, and it's at this moment that he realizes that he's failed as a president. The MC isn't getting out of this without taking some damage, as Hank takes a bullet to the leg and a member of Tucson is killed. The club comes up with the idea to set up these big industrial work lights to blind the oncoming horde, and aid them in gunning their opponents down. They're lacking fuel for the generator to power them, the fuel currently sitting outside in the garage. This is the moment that Creeper proves that he is that dude. I'm ecstatic that his character is finally getting more to do. He winds up being one of the best characters across either Sutter show. He single-handedly makes a run for the fuel and uses a truck to block off the gate, brutally crushing an opposing Mayan's arm in the process. There's quite a few brutal shots here. Another one I visibly winced at was Angel sniping a guy who subsequently falls and hangs himself on some barbed wire. While Creeper is making his run, Easy and Cielo head to the rooftop to launch Molotov cocktails using booze found in the clubhouse. Easy's landing some great shots, until a Mayan sneaks up on him and a rooftop duel ensues. Easy gains the upper hand and throws his opponent from the roof, but the break in defense allows the opposition to light Creeper the hell up. He survives, but he takes like 3 or 4 bullets. Dude is bleeding bad. While Santo Padre has been incredibly resourceful up to this point, the ammo is finally starting to dry up as daylight breaks. Gilly and Coco return to the clubhouse and are immediately fired upon, leading to some of my favorite dialogue across the episode.
They're in the clubhouse. What you guys do? We blew up Yuma. All of them? Not all of them. We gotta get to the guy. But first, we gotta get to the van with the guns. Half our ammunition's in there. I'll cover you. Man, I'll cover you! Motherfucker, I just saved your ass from a tribe of crackhead murder hippies. Go!
They manage to rejoin Santo Padre as Bishop finally throws in the towel, and the club finally runs out of both ammo and defenses. They prepare for the end, and it's a pretty emotionally charged goodbye. There are many painful conversations going around, namely Angel and Nails and Hank making one last call to his mom. The first moment of levity so far, and it's all the characters readying to die in this brief moment of reflection. Easy makes an executive decision and has a very shouty conversation with Canche, surrendering himself and opening the door of the clubhouse to face his end. The rest of Santo Padre join him in solidarity, and Canche lines them all up execution style. The entire scenario of last season, not just this episode or this scene, encapsulates how cancerous Santo Padre is as a charter. They really are a disease plaguing the entire Mayan organization. And it's such a sharp contrast to the Sons. The Sons of Anarchy definitely had some shady dealings, but for the most part, they were a united front as a club. The Mayans are liable to turn on each other out of sheer boredom. Canche refers to them as rabid animals that need to be put down, and I can't really find any fault in that statement. All hope seems lost until Alvarez arrives. God, Rivera is phenomenal in this scene, and he's legitimately intimidating. I forgot how scary Alvarez's character can be since he hasn't worn a cut since season 1, and hasn't really been an antagonist since the early days of Sons of Anarchy.
You gonna point a gun at my primo, sir? You gonna point a gun at me, mother... What have you done, Canche?
Marcus, we didn't start this. We didn't start this.
What have you done, primo? This is my club. You hear me? You hear me? This is my club!
The curtain comes to a close and wow, what a premiere. I'm infatuated with every minute of this episode, and Elgin has, without a doubt, earned my trust. He had it in season 3, but this firmly invested me, and was handled with the experience of a showrunner decades his experience. Wherever he wants to take this story, whatever he wants to do with these characters, I'm fully on board. The second episode opens with a time skip of 4 months, another great move by Elgin. This allows us to gloss over the messy cleanup of all the dead bodies in the broken clubhouse, as well as Hank and Creeper healing from their injuries, Coco getting clean, and the specific politicking of the Mayan power shift. There was such a long way to go, and the fast forwarding really streamlines the narrative without bogging it down with hyper-specifics. This is used to great effect for some fun reveals though, namely that Alvarez has once again donned a Mayan cut, taking the president's patch for Santo Padre and demoting Bishop to VP. The clubhouse is more akin to a zoo, as Canche and the rest of Yuma, as well as members of Stockton and Oakland, have taken up residence. They aim to keep an eye on Santo Padre and begin a very, very aggressive healing process. A couple of the more notable Mayans that we've seen across the background of the series finally get pushed to the foreground, and I really like them all, especially Downer and Otero. Trini is now working as one of the bar girls, and Manny Montana joins the cast to play the Mayan Easy pushed from the rooftop, a member of Yuma named Manny.
Well, that's just lazy writing.
The club attempts to get back to business, developing a new heroin pipeline with El Banquero, leader of the LNG cartel, Galindo's arch-rival. Bishop, however, is having absolutely none of this. He threatens to kill everyone in his clubhouse taking up residence that isn't wearing a Santo Padre patch, showing that he's learned absolutely nothing. The rest of the episode sees individual members doing their own thing, which I don't mind. Considering they all almost died in the premiere, some downtime is sorely needed. Elgin is terrific at setting them in motion in an organic way for where they need to be for the rest of the season. Easy adopts a dog named Sally and begins to form a connection with Sophia, a worker at the animal shelter. Coco and Hope have gotten clean and are now living together. They're so cheesy, but kinda cute. Their romance is starting to pull me in. Creeper hits an NA meeting, this being my favorite example of real life and character integration. Lucero used to be a gnarly addict, and is an active participant in his sobriety and change in his real life. I love when they can pull something from an actor and apply it to a character, especially when it's this well done. His monologue here is beautiful, and it leads him to connect with another NA named Cody, played by Stella Maeve. Lucero's increased involvement is my favorite aspect of the season. Creeper and Cody have great chemistry. Speaking of getting a bigger role, the Sons seem to be getting a bigger one this season as well, as we find out that Packer has stepped down as Samdino president due to a severe cancer diagnosis. We meet a handful of new Samdino members, including Doc, the new president, VP Boston Terry, and Joker. Terry is questioning the disappearance of Montez and pushing for war with the Mayans, a suggestion that's continuously shot down by the rest of his club. Doc proclaims that the Mayans are hanging on by a thread anyway and there's no need to escalate a war. That is, until Jess, having discovered Montez's cut in the barrel that Taza buried him in, brings it to her sister Jasmine. Jasmine brings it to her boyfriend, who happens to be Samdino's Terry. Man, from civil war to potential Sons War, the Mayans just cannot catch a break. Tensions continue to mount for the Mayans as JJ, an ex-con who spent time in prison with Easy, finishes his sentence. He drops in to visit his old friend and hints at Easy being a rat, raising suspicions about Easy's early release for killing a cop. Initially, I thought of JJ as a somewhat pointless character, but this is a really neat way to work the rat narrative back into the storyline, as well as offer some unique perspective on Easy's time inside. Conche continues to press the Banquero-Mayan alliance, which infuriates Bishop, who's not willing to put the club in bed with another cartel. This leads to a heated argument with Alvarez, who again demotes Bishop and in a shocking twist offers the VP patch to Easy.
What a twist!
Alvarez sees Easy as the future of the Mayans, and seeks to bring the focus of the club back to healing, using the Day of the Fallen Brothers, a gathering of Mayans to honor their fallen members, to do so. He sends Coco down to Oakland as the representative from Santo Padre, and in a surprising but sweet move, enlists Nestor as the club's new prospect. Desiring to give Easy a push in the right direction, Alvarez gives Easy an old book detailing the MC's history and bylaws. Easy attempts to make amends with Conche, which she immediately bats down. He tells Easy that he'll never forgive him, considering him a dead man walking, and offers him a warning. Don't let me catch you slipping. Easy then attempts to hash things out with Bishop, which also goes pretty horribly. We get the payoff to Season 4's most prominent piece of trailer bait. Good God, what a punch.
Anything else?
Hey, what are you doing?
You better respect your VP.
I know I've said it ad nauseum across this video, but I really appreciate the lengths Elgin goes to flesh the members of Santo Padre out. Sutter did next to none of that with half of them. And I don't mind deviating from the action every once in a while to see the bit of their day-to-day. Gilly visits his old army buddies, namely Ray and her husband Paul, and we get to see him just hang out at their son Jacob's birthday party. Gilly's entire arc is really just a vehicle to talk about veteran PTSD, which I will heap praise upon all day if you let me. Vargas is a real-life US Army veteran. Again, just character-actor integration. This is something that he's insanely passionate about, and he's constantly working to raise awareness of it. It's told beautifully, with all the sensitivity that the subject deserves. It highlights many of the darker moments without ever feeling like it's just hamming it up for the cameras. My only slight problem with it is that, not counting Gilly of course, I don't love any of the characters that it's told through. Ray is alright, but I cannot stand Paul, and he carries the crux of the arc. Though I can acknowledge that this could be my pre-established biases of finding CM Punk annoying, he's really not doing a bad job here. Despite my nitpicks, I love seeing more of Gilly. I always thought he was such an underappreciated character. Cody and Creeper are bopping along as well and starting to develop a romance. They have such a natural chemistry. Creeper is so awkward and it plays very well against Cody's more brazen personality. Easy visits Alvarez at his home and the two discuss a lesser known Mayan bylaw, that of the Kill Switch Clause. The clause states that any sitting Mayan president can be removed by unanimous vote. Alvarez's family dynamic is such an underrated aspect of the series. He has such a wholesome relationship with his family. And there's this tug of war between the world of the club and this stable home life that this long-term outlaw has somehow been able to maintain all this time. There's a unique layer added to this with the worsening of his relationship with Bishop, who's not just a club mate, but is legit family, showing how quickly each world can dissolve when one tries to have a foot in both. The bit before Easy shows up where the family is trying to watch a movie on streaming, and Alvarez questions why they just can't use the VCRs, gold. His wife, Izzy, having a full understanding of how all these streaming services work, along with his daughter Tessa's, "What's a VCR?" hits me like a freight train. That's not the picture of her I told you to use. But it is. This is a gag. Art's a lie. With as many interesting story nuggets as episode 4 throws at us, it has time for one more big one. Miguel Galindo is alive and well, hiding out in Mexico at a convent led by his aunt. He forms a friendship with a little boy named Tomas, as Tomas and his father Martin are also in hiding. Turns out the LNG, led by this peanut-headed named Alejandro, are hunting for them. The episode ends with Doc angrily telling Terry that Chibs has given the green light to go to war with the Mayans. Death of the Virgin is a hell of an episode, and one of the strongest written of the series. From here on out, the season bounces from one holy moment to the next, never slowing down or pulling back. The episode opens with a grisly scene of Adelita murdering Linares and her husband, having found out from Potter that Linares had lied to her and stolen her child. It's such a poetic yet tragic scene. To reclaim her baby, Adelita had to inadvertently expose him to the horrors that she witnessed as a child. Horrors that altered the trajectory of her life forever. Her breakdown after she kills the couple and takes her child back is heart-wrenching. She's finally gotten back what she once thought lost. What she's been missing and sorely needing for a season and a half, only to ironically become unworthy to have him. This is only the tip of the iceberg as far as brutality is concerned, because the focus comes back to Miguel and his interactions with Tomas, which are super endearing. Funnily enough, I never cared for Miguel and Emily while they were together. I was never invested in their saga as cartel leaders or anything else that spawned from that dynamic. But split apart, they really work for me. Miguel's time at the convent is a sincere, introspective look into his character. Having Sister Teresa, his aunt and head nun, guide him using her faith as a backdrop was crucial in attempting to humanize Miguel, as his time here honestly sort of does. Every interaction they have, every bit of humor or serene moment is well earned and well executed. Renee Victor is a total professional, and she imbues this role with wisdom and grace. I genuinely believe that Miguel cares, not just about Tomas, but his spiritual condition. That's further tested when Tomas disappears and the entire convent joins forces to find him. They're quickly interrupted by the LNG, who rolled Tomas's dead body from the bed of their truck in a successful bid to lure Martin out. This scene is harrowing, and to this day, with 4 or 5 rewatches under my belt, I cannot watch this without getting teary-eyed. Martin's guttural, frantic screams, Teresa's stoic reaction that you can tell by her eyes is a moment away from breaking. It all gels together for one of the most emotionally charged scenes of the series. After that, we shift to Emily, who's had absolutely zero agency and is barely a character this season. She continues running away from her problems, periodically checking in with Aaron, with whom she's entrusted Cristobal's safety. Emily is quickly tracked down by PIs investigating the agro park and Marlon's suicide. No! Bad Elgin! No! No agro park! Knock that off. This prompts her to reach out to Easy, who gives her a moment's thought before realizing he has far more important to worry about, as he turns his attention back to the Mayan festivities while they prepare to celebrate the Day of the Fallen Brothers. Diaz and Alvarez have a great scene here, where Diaz pleads his case about the cancerous nature of Santo Padre. As if on cue, Santo Padre proves him right when they begin brawling with the other Mayans, while everyone attempts to pay respects to their dead. Hank evokes Steve's name, which causes tension amidst the other members. Dondo makes a great point about people like Gaeta and Ramos being his brothers for 10 years. Steve wore a patch for 10 minutes and then blew his brains out. It's a critical moment, and while I don't necessarily condone what he's saying, he is objectively correct. The other chargers are just supposed to line up and respect a fallen member of Santo Padre after they recently attempted to kill every single person in this room. It quite literally is them or everyone else, because Kanche and the others won't stop trying to either force them out or kill them. And rightfully so. Santo Padre 100% deserves this. The Sons used this opportunity to strike against the mother charger in Oakland, thanks to some intel provided to Terry from Jess. Sam Dino gears up for an attack, and the bullets rain. I crossed my fingers. I muttered under my breath, but that didn't stop the camera from panning up and revealing the ultimate casualty of the Sons' hit. Coco had met his end. After everything he suffered through, going from fan favorite to desperate addict, cleaning up his act, and then finding love with Hope, both the idea and the person, finally reclaiming his place as the pulse, the heartbeat of the Santo Padre Charter. It is agonizing to see him go. Nothing out of either Sutter series beats Opie's death as far as scale, but this is the closest to recapturing that feeling that I've personally experienced. From here on out, we go on this roller coaster ride of misery, action, and death, and it is paced exquisitely. The Mayans are obviously crushed, especially Gilly. His reaction is so visceral. The callback to the "her name is Hope" line brought a tear to my eye. Angel is spiraling out horribly as he and Coco ended on rough terms, so he decides to double down on the crap decisions and hook up with Letty?
That's nasty.
While he's doing that, Nails miscarries and... my god! Between Tomas's death, Coco's death, and this scene, I'm punishing the tissue box harder than I did when I watched Debbie Does Dallas.
It'd be funny if it weren't so pathetic. No, what the heck, I'll laugh anyway.
There's a great use of POV while Nails is in the hospital with all the flickering lights, and damn it, as loath as I am to admit it, I am crying like a bitch throughout this entire scene. While I really admire Elgin's drive to be as authentic as possible, and his desire to highlight these horrid human experiences that many of us have to face, this one was a little too much for me. When the doctor's hand nails her baby and all she says is, "He's beautiful," I lost my and I had to pause and just come back later. I do respect Elgin not shying away from the difficult material though, and I'm extremely grateful that he can handle this type of thing without ever feeling gratuitous. The Mayans discover that the Sons were responsible for the other night's carnage, and, against Alvarez's better judgment, the club votes for war. Because I guess they haven't seen enough of that recently. In fairness, this really is the only solution to the Mayan Civil War. The only way to unite the club again is to make the Sons the sole focus of their rage. Easy, Angel, and Manny devise a plan to storm the hospital where Packer is being treated, and kill him as well as any other high-ranking Sons of Anarchy members they may come across. The plan is quickly foiled as they manage to take out a few Sons of Anarchy members and injure Terry, but the alarm is raised. While fleeing, Angel kills a cop and the entire thing is witnessed by... Gabby? Having no choice but to kidnap her, the three escape as Manny deviates to distract any Sons who may be in pursuit. There's really only one way this plays out, and I gotta tell you, I am dreading it. Easy and Gabby talk, and I love that she immediately shuts down his explanation of the day's events. "I know what I saw," she says to him. This is a detail I've long admired about her character. Her reaction to violence has always been one of understanding and painful realization. She's never been a damsel in distress, or this delicate flower that's in disbelief that these people do bad things. It goes miles in telling us about her character's background without ever needing to delve into the specifics. The implication has always been clear due to the way she reacts to the world around her. She tells Easy that she has to go to the police, and Angel needs to pay for what he's done. The back and forth is heartbreaking as Gabby desperately tries to convince Easy to do the right thing.
I know in my heart that And in your heart, you're good. But Angel, he needs to answer for what he did. Your mother would want you to do the right.
No! Bro, what did you do? Easy, what the did you do? Easy! What did you do?
God, give me a break! Gabby's death breaks my heart. She was one of the only truly good characters in the series, and Angel's reaction is beautifully done. I have no issues with the execution or the result, but I do hate the logic behind it. The show frames it to seem like this was the only way to prevent Angel, Easy, and Manny from getting caught. But like, you guys shot up a hospital in broad daylight and were unmasked the majority of the time. This is going to be breaking news across the entire state. And I just can't buy that this entire thing hinges on Gabby telling the police or not. This scene is divisive because this is the moment people like to point to say that Easy went dark. And in doing so, they lay the false claim that this seemingly comes out of nowhere. Are we watching the same show? Easy has always been dark. The line has been getting blurrier all series long. When we meet the character, he's getting released from jail after 8 years for killing a cop, which he never shows an ounce of remorse for, by the way. He plans to continue his crazed manhunt for his mother's killer, and refuses to let anything stop him in this pursuit. Do we remember what happened when he found the person responsible? Oh, that's right, he strangled her to death with his bare hands. He then proves willing to slaughter man after man, simply because it's what his club, not the club, needs. By his own admission, he would kill a kid no problemo if that's what the club needed. And he was only really deterred from that by Angel. Angel has always been his deterrent and his justification, and that's evidenced by Gabby's murder. Easy went dark the day Marisol died. Every action since then has affirmed that. You can argue semantics about the hows, but you'll never convince me that the why of it all makes no sense. Mayans is littered with examples across every season. Nails breaks up with Angel, and it's so awful that his reaction to the miscarriage news is to scream, "What did you do?" at her. He's been pretty absent the entire relationship, and to put the blame on her with his initial reaction is the cherry on top of the dump cake. He has an absolutely tragic conversation with Felipe, and then tries to seek solace in Letty, only to be discovered by Gilly and catch a much-deserved ass-whooping. Not a great day for Angel. It's all rectified when he returns home to find Adelita. And while he's unloading his grief on her, he's interrupted by a baby's cry. The look on his face when he adds it up in his head that his baby boy is finally home is enough to supersede all the awful that he's done. The picture he's been staring at for almost 2 seasons has finally come to life. And as rough as his arc's been, he does deserve this. The death toll keeps climbing and the action remains thrilling as Episode 8, The Righteous Wrath of an Honorable Man, sees the Mayans take the fight directly to Sam Dino. The opening scene is so apt, as it shows the Sons chasing down and killing a Mayan, signaling the impending bloodbath. If you listen closely, you could hear the Sons outro title card sound effect thing play when they kill the Mayan. It's a really nice touch, I love that. I love the juxtaposition between the Reyes brothers from this point on, as Easy sees himself growing darker and burning more bridges, while Angel grows warmer and tries to build his family. Angel is so adorable here. Him quoting baby books to Adelita to explain why the baby refuses to breastfeed is a much needed bit of levity. I love Dad Angel. Easy, meanwhile, decides to visit Felipe in one of the most chilling scenes that they have together. There's a great callback to the story of the painting that these two shared in this very shop last season, as Easy tells the old man that he failed in saving Gabby, and Felipe's breakdown afterwards is genuinely sorrowful. Alvarez gathers the Mayans and gives a fantastic speech as Dondo, Manny, Otero, and Hank lead a street assault on the Sons, while Canche and the rest of Santo Padre raid Sam Dino's clubhouse. The Sons' death montage playing over Alvarez feeding horses at a stable with his daughter is so reminiscent of the baptism scene from The Godfather. What a great homage. Samdino President Doc is one of the many casualties, and things only get worse at the clubhouse, where the Mayans slaughter everyone. The entire sequence is riveting and action-packed. Nestor comes in clutch, Taza saves Bishop's life, and Easy, in an absolutely bad move, turns his gun on Conche and says, "Caught you slipping," before shooting him in the head. What a dirty bastard, my god. I know Sons of Anarchy had a ton of great quotes, but Mayans has some bangers, boy. After the raid, Adelita and Angel have a vital conversation about their relationship, and it's so powerful. Born of the desire Adelita feels to confirm that she's become a monster. I adore Dad Angel, and I love these two together. And the following scene sees them discussing breaking the cycle of violence their fathers trapped them in such an impactful way. They finally decide to give their baby a name, and Angel suggests Maverick. It's adorable that Adelita struggles to say it. I don't even think Barada's acting here. Miguel is instructed to leave the convent and is picked up by Luis, a member of his security detail. The pair are intercepted by Soledad, Benquero's younger sister. She claims that they have much to discuss, and Miguel is set on his way back to the top. He tracks down Cristobal and orders Aaron's death, forcing Emily to return to Santo Padre and be with him. I guess he learned nothing from the nuns after all. It's a shame because it does reduce the impact of those scenes that I praise so highly, despite all of them still being fantastic. Miguel and Soledad sit down with Alvarez and Easy to discuss a new heroin deal, with Soledad unveiling an entire warehouse full. She offers to bring the club back to its former glory, with Miguel facilitating movement over the border while the Mayans run protection. Easy, naturally, wants to take the deal, but Alvarez fights against it, claiming that their connection to the drug has destroyed them all as people. Cody, who has been adorably falling deeper and deeper in love with Creeper, is revealed to be a f***ing narc. She's really an undercover fed named Katie, working to bring down the Galindo cartel through the Mayans Motorcycle Club. Turns out, the ATF has had tabs on the Mayans since the Samoa massacre back in Season 1. It doesn't quite rectify that they faced absolutely no consequences up to this point, especially during mass shootouts at hospitals and the like, but it does provide some sorely needed context as to just why nobody is behind bars yet. Speaking of heel feds, Potter rears his ugly head again, paying Adelita a visit and hinting that he knows what she did to Linares. He speaks the scariest words that a character on this series can hear, and lets her know that she owes him one. It's beyond brutal that he's cornered her like this, and it's so distressing that all she can manage to do is scream, "I won't do it," over and over again. JJ shows up and threatens to expose Easy to his club, lest Easy put him to work as part of the MC. There's quite a bit of division going around this episode, but it's juxtaposed nicely with a couple of scenes of reconciliation. Angel and Nails sit down to talk, and honestly, this is a gorgeous scene. This was the moment that I realized I actually cared for Nails as a character, having never really appreciated her arc until now. She's been through the ringer, yet was always trying to do the right thing, all while being paired with a character like Angel, who's often self-centered. This is as necessary for his character as it is hers. Angel has been slowly morphing into a more likable and morally better person, but at this point, he's still ruled by selfishness. It would feel way too clean for him to get Maverick back and not have to deal with the woman and the child that he neglected. It would make it harder to root for him. This scene, along with Easy's drift to hell, humanizes him and works to make him a fully realized character. His apology to Nails and his admittance of fault is one of his only selfless acts, and I love that she calls him out on it. She straight up tells Angel that she's not here to make him feel better, and he swears that's not why he called her. What's more, I believe him. The pair end on good terms, and Nails takes her leave. Props to Justina Adorno. She's putting in the work here, and she has been all season. After a disastrous first meeting, Maggie and Bishop even make up, and it's some of the more naturalistic dialogue his character has ever had. I love that Maggie stands her ground. She gives as much as she takes, and Priscilliana Sparolini plays her lovingly. They have an immediate chemistry, and I can't recall the last time I saw a genuine smile on Bishop's face. The Mayans, both individually and as a whole, seem to be healing. That is, until Alvarez shoots down Soledad's deal. enraging the other members. Why is the most consistent thing about Santo Padre is that they always choose the absolute worst option for themselves. Before Templo ends, Taza announces his intentions to go nomad. Alvarez grants him that blessing, and while Taza is nearer to the top of the list of Mayans that absolutely deserve to die, it is bittersweet to see him go. He's an OG after all. He's been around since day one. The episode ends with two of the most distressing scenes of the season. Felipe arrives at Easy's trailer, gun loaded, knowing what he needs to do, but not having the strength to do it. Easy relishes in this, pulling the gun to his head and instructing his father to show him Ignacio. It's so heartbreaking because this is the final time in the series that these two speak to each other. And Felipe silently leaves, knowing that he's failed and it's too late to save Easy's soul. Creeper and Katie are hanging out, and right as Creeper is about to give her some crucial information about the club, she stops him and exposes her secret to him. This scene is so admirably done. The reveal is communicated with no dialogue, and sold completely on the look of horror and comprehension slowly dawning on Creeper's face. The finale, when the breakdown hits at midnight, hits a grand slam. We get the best Sons of Anarchy cameo across Mayans as the himself, Tig Traeger, drops in on Terry in the hospital. Tig's dialogue, his mannerisms, it feels like we picked up right where we left him in Sons. I had no idea how much I needed to hear Tig talk about kink shaming until we got it. His scene with Alvarez later on is so appropriate as well. Tig has now become the old school road warrior, the survivor of decades of this life. It's very reminiscent of the type of interactions Clay and Alvarez used to have, where it's just two battle-hardened soldiers going back and forth. Creeper confronts Katie, and I don't think I feel as much sympathy for anyone else in this series as I do for him in this scene. Lucero is giving his all as Katie explains why the feds chose him. This says a lot about who this character is. He's a fiercely loyal brother who's often isolated and abandoned by the ones he'd die for. Creeper is such a tragic character. He rejects Katie's claims of there being a way out for him if he turns rat on the club. She pleads with him and tells him that he wouldn't be the only one, dropping the bomb of there already being a rat in the club. And even armed with that knowledge, when it comes time to confess, he chooses the club and his brothers and single-handedly takes the fall for their crimes. Fresh off the high of killing JJ, Easy confronts Alvarez in a stellar scene where Alvarez makes a final desperate attempt to deter Easy from getting in bed with the cartel. Sick of living with all the ghosts of dead Mayans, Alvarez stands firm against taking Soledad's deal. Speaking of, Soledad has been scheming and has Adelita kill Banquero so she can run their empire unchallenged. Another wet fart of an occasion. Elgin drops the ball here as sloppily as he did with Pablo. I understand why Banquero needs to go. But again, he's been this overarching threat this entire season. He's had so many intimidating and brutal scenes. I often think of that scene where he's trying to figure out which employee stole his watch. And then at the end of the day, he just gets taken out like nothing. This isn't expectation subversion. This is, I don't really know how to remove this guy from the picture to move the story along. It just builds and builds and builds. And right when it seems like it's gonna go off the rails, it just sort of fades out. Miguel visits Felipe and finally gets the truth about Dita's death, vowing to kill Felipe right here and now, and then move on to kill Easy and Angel. Felipe finally tells Miguel that he can't do that because they are his family. It's left hanging from here, but spoiler alert, it doesn't pay off in any meaningful way. I'm not even entirely sure why Elgin decided to keep this plot thread going, though to be fair, unlike some of the other stuff that Sutter introduced, this one is too big to just ignore or shrug off. You kinda have to address it. Maybe I just don't really care how it was handled because I wasn't a fan of this twist since its inception, but I can 100% understand why fans were so invested in this. Samdino ambushes a handful of prominent Mayans that includes Manny, Dondo, and Otero, even killing Dondo in the process. The scene reopens on Manny being doused with gasoline by the new president of Samdino, Isaac? Holy f***. Now this is a twist.
What a twist!
Isaac's surname is revealed to be Packer, the estranged younger brother of Sam Dino's Packer. Having survived Coco's gunshot back at Meth Mountain, he's back for a vengeance. Every muscle in my body tensed up during this scene. Isaac is as deranged as always. This is all one giant game to him, make no mistake. Manny starts praying and apologizing, calling out for his young daughter to forgive him. Isaac's reaction to this man crying out to his infant child that he's never gonna see again? This is gonna make her so interesting. Flicking his cigarette and lighting Manny on fire. Oh, Manny's death is inhumanly brutal. This is legit distressing. It makes my skin crawl. The final scene is no less unnerving, albeit for opposite reasons. Easy successfully rallies the other members of Santo Padre into invoking the kill switch, removing Alvarez from the club. What an absolute bastard. Alvarez leaves with the crushing realization that Canche and Diaz were right. Santo Padre is a cancer. Easy isn't finished though, as he pulls a fast one on Bishop and steals the president's patch, offering Bishop his VP flash. Bishop reluctantly accepts, as the rest of the charter welcomes Easy and his intention to take Soledad's deal. Easy gives this incredibly dark monologue, promising to wipe every member of the Sons off the map, while using the club's new heroin pipeline to launch them all to heights they've never seen. Funnily enough, this episode ends with an unknown person burning that said warehouse to the ground. Hot damn, what a season. It took everything I loved about Elgin's work on season 3 and fed it steroids. There's a hiccup or two here or there, but this is compelling TV. Elgin and this series have finally found their groove. Only one real issue was holding things up now, that being that FX still hadn't greenlit a 5th season. They would finally do so over a month after the finale in July of 2022. Then, in January of 2023, the baffling announcement was made that the 5th season of Mayans would also be its last, with Elgin claiming that the network wanted more, but he and the cast were choosing to end the series here. The final season was contentious even for viewers who enjoyed the series, but I remembered mostly digging it. The real question remains, for a showrunner that I've heaped so much praise upon, a series I continuously claim as worthy of its predecessor after he took over, how did this final outing stack up? Objectively, the final season of Mayans feels rushed. It's also bloated, wastes time on overarching stories that amount to absolutely nothing, and doesn't do a great job paying off the long-running subplots from earlier seasons. Subjectively, I like it. It's not great, hell, parts of it don't even work in the context of a final season, but I do think that there are more highs than lows. The premiere is great, if a bit scattered. The war between the Sons and the Mayans has exploded, with the Mayans losing the war on every front. Oakland and Charming have agreed to stay out of it, containing the war mostly to Southern California. Right off the bat, President Isaac is so much fun. Every scene J.R. Bourne is in is magical. He's intimidating, but there's an aloofness, a sort of lust for destruction that makes him endlessly entertaining. The opening scene where he takes a piss on a brutally beaten and dying Mayan is a prime example. There were a few things I didn't foresee Mayans as a series being able to accomplish. For one, being a show that I would watch with the same fervor as Sons of Anarchy. For another, having me become further invested in this universe after having grown tired of its brother series' last couple of seasons. It delivered on both of these, and against all odds, offered up the bonus of an original Sons of Anarchy character that was as good as characters from the original show. You can pick apart many of this season's flaws. I've hit on a few and will hit on a lot more, but you just can't convince me that it wasn't a fun time. Especially with Isaac being at the forefront. To buff their numbers in anticipation for the upcoming slaughter, Santo Padre has added Lobo and Downer as members via patch-in, also recruiting Guero, Ibarra's son, as well as new prospect Bottles. Santo Padre leads an assault on an SOA weapons shipment in a very well shot and tense scene. It's also nice to see that the show hasn't lost its humor despite the darker tone. The banter between the club members as they move the weapons crates back and forth off the trucks, or Angel forgetting Easy's birthday are the perfect amount of levity. The Mayans offer the stolen guns to Soledad, who switched from heroin to fentanyl after the warehouse fire. She laughs them off and scolds Miguel for having a soft spot for these idiots, as the Mayans realize that her guards are equipped with high-grade military equipment. Outmatched and outgunned, the Mayans attempt a new alliance with another MC, the Broken Saints. This is so lame. The Broken Saints, I relish the opportunity to shorten that to BS for the script, are an all-female motorcycle club. I know that there are legit female MCs in real life, but none of them are 1%ers. This club doesn't belong in the middle of a war between two of the more notorious outlaw clubs in the state. I could forgive that, as forced as it seems, if the writing wasn't complete dog. Every single word out of their mouths is so cringy. Especially the blonde with the obligatory septum piercing, I think her name is Chip. I will never understand why Hollywood's portrayal of strong women necessitates making them look as stupid, smelly, and hairy as possible.
You know all those magazine covers are photoshopped, right? Scared of what a real woman looks like?
Letty aside, it's also incredibly rare for Mayans to swing and miss this hard when it comes to crafting sincere and interesting women. Every time the Broken Saints are on screen, the writing falls off a cliff. It becomes an atrocious competition to see which member can utter the most dreadful, grating, head-scratchingly bad line that you've heard all series long. It devolves into an utter mess of tired cliches, F-bombs, and Billy Badass dialogue. We catch up with Creeper, who's now doing time in prison after his confession last season, when he's ambushed, stabbed, and given a warning. Tell that Mayan rat Smokey says hello. I hate seeing Creeper stabbed, but I love the consistency with which Smokey has been mentioned. This validates JJ's character as we find out that Smokey and JJ are cousins. They had been corresponding since JJ's release, and Smokey had grown suspicious when he stopped hearing from him. There's even a blink and you'll miss it line early on in season 4, where JJ asks Easy if he ever linked up with Smokey. Easy shrugs the question off with a joke, and you never see JJ's reaction to this. It seemingly comes out of nowhere. So to see that it had been leading up to something all along, as well as integrating the rat's storyline back into the narrative in the most organic way possible, is a very welcome touch. Creeper barely pulls through, and he receives a visit from Katie. He refuses to give in to her and says that if she really wants to help, she'll find out who the rat in his club is. The Mayans, inquiring about Creeper getting hit, run smack dab into the Iron War MC, a club composed entirely of cops. Really dropping the ball on introducing a club that doesn't suck this season, aren't we? Their president shines some light on just how bad the club's prison standing is. Since they have no product to run, they have no power. Thus, no protection, meaning that any Mayan serving time is a dead man walking. In one of many wasted plot lines, Soledad and Miguel, under Potter's orders, attempt to make an alliance with a rival cartel leader named Eduardo. This scene is pretty pointless and a little disgusting, but it has one of my favorite moments of the series, no joke. Miguel sets eyes on one of Soledad's men, and we see that it's that stupid peanut-headed Alejandro. The scene where they're using the bathroom together is so delightfully awkward. I was dying at Miguel using the urinal right next to him. Tomas. His name was Tomas. Are the last words Alejandro hears, sparing the briefest look of confusion before Miguel smashes his skull into a urinal, leaving him to bleed out on the bathroom floor. Catharsis, thy name is Miguel Galindo. This is pure dopamine, easily Miguel's best moment as a character. Speaking of dopamine, the scene where Isaac and the Sons are interrogating the Mayan members of Inland Empire, chef's kiss. The Isaac scenes are so good, I almost need to stop talking about them. Every time I do, I'm tempted to just shut my mouth and roll the entire clip for you guys. He's like a bratty little kid who's upset that you're not playing action figures the way he wants you to play. Crossed with a serial killer, his energy is unmatched. One underrated aspect of his character that I really appreciate is how representative he is of the Sons of Anarchy's dark underbelly. We don't register the Sons as these twisted evil beings in our mind. They were never portrayed that way until Isaac. Despite the bad things they did, they always seem to have some sort of moral compass. Isaac challenges that. He turns Sam Dino into this borderline unholy organization, and it's almost a little surreal to see. This is bolstered by the knowledge that many of the other members either hate him or fear him. Chibs wants nothing to do with him. The older Packer brother is ashamed of him. Tig of all people refers to him as that demon that lives in the desert, and Terry is mortified by him. It speaks volumes of their desperation to not lose even a little bit of ground to the Mayans, that they just let Isaac operate unrestricted. Angel gets a surprise visit from Cole, an ex-Black Ops gunrunner and mercenary we met back in Season 1. This is such a fun throwback. He wasn't around for more than a couple of episodes, but the intimidation factor stuck with me. Cole is the size of a gorilla in a one-man army. He handed the Mayans their asses the last time they met. He warns Angel not to move against Soledad and threatens his family, even pointing a gun at baby Maverick. Angel, understandably freaked out, brings this news to the club, and Easy, showing absolutely no concern for his brother's safety, begins to smile. He deduces that Soledad didn't want their stolen guns because she's getting the weapons from Cole. The cartel produces the fentanyl, Cole and his goons run protection, and Iron War moves the product through the prisons. Now that all the players are on the board, all we have to do is knock them off. Easy is psychotic. In addition to the Sons, in a war they are already losing, as Bishop points out, Easy is adding the cartel, a military assassination unit, and an MC of policemen to the list. The club begins to raid cartel cookhouses and kidnaps a chef named Elio, whom they force to cook fentanyl for them. I really liked Elio, specifically his relationship with Bottles, who forcibly becomes his assistant. They're weirdly wholesome together. I had a big stupid grin on my face throughout the entire Amigos conversation. I'm a fan of Bottles' character in general, actually. Alex Barone brings a very natural feel to the role, and he has great chemistry with the rest of the club, especially Downer and Guero. As the club heads further and further into dangerous territory, Angel starts to drift away, desperately trying to prioritize the safety of his family. He channels his inner Piney when it comes to working alongside the cartel, or anything tangentially related to it. This is a consistent character trait that I love. He's always been anti-cartel and working to get the club away from it. His conversation with Bishop in this scene is phenomenal. Having no one else to turn to, Angel tells Bishop about Maverick and his need to protect him while inquiring about Bishop's late son. This may be Michael Irby's best performance across Mayans. Bishop doesn't even hesitate, and his reply is heartbreaking. He tells Angel he stays in the club because he doesn't have anything else. The way he repeats it to himself, like he has to verbalize it to properly reaffirm how empty his life is, it's so despondent, it kills me. Easy meets with Cole and strikes a deal to be their new supplier, with Cole threatening to murder him, Angel, and everyone the both of them care about if they fail. So, no pressure. Angel, in complete disbelief, asks Easy how he plans to match the cartel's supply, to which Easy replies, "I have no idea, but now we have no choice." We don't talk about his descent into madness enough. Easy has gone completely off the deep end. And the most insane bit of it is that he truly believes that only he can pull this off. He believes his own hype and shows no concern for his club or his brother. And I don't believe it's because he doesn't care, but because he doesn't believe in failure as an option. This ego-tinged narcissism that he displays might almost be admirable. You know, if he wasn't one slightly wrong move away from getting everyone around him killed. Katie, in pursuit of the Mayan rat, discovers a lead about Kevin Jimenez and tracks down his widow. We shockingly find out that the woman never found out what happened to her husband, and invites Katie in, giving her free rein to dig through all of his old police stuff. Katie discovers the old audio logs and info drops that Easy would give Jimenez all the way back in season 1, while Creeper manages to reach out to Hank and inform him that the club has a rat. Hank relays this information to Easy, Angel, and Bishop, the Reyes brothers understandably becoming unnerved. Amid Ilios' successful creation of their first product, the club seems like they're finally on an upswing. Until Lobo starts literally sticking his fingers in trays of raw chemicals used in the production of fentanyl. He ODs and dies, deservedly so, but the event is witnessed by Sophia and the rest of the club. Everyone except for Easy protests that it's too dangerous to keep producing the drug at the clubhouse, so Easy moves Elio and his lab over to the Broken Saints farmhouse. The season has stayed mostly even to this point, but episode 4, I See the Black Light, begins to muddy the waters. Adelita has been strong-armed by Potter into working for the cartel. I don't fully understand why Potter wants her working for Soledad. They kind of just gloss over that. But she's sent to kill that pointless new cartel leader, Eduardo. Honestly, this is the lamest she has ever been. Really the only time I've ever found her character lame, period. The scene itself is framed so awkwardly, and Adelita whispering into his ear before she slits his throat, it's so cringeworthy. I know that it's a callback to when she killed Banquero in a similar fashion last season, but that at least sort of made sense. This is so stupid. She whispers something to the effect of, "How's her accent sound now?" See, when Eduardo and Soledad first met, he said that her Spanish hurt his ears and her accent was terrible. Not only is this super lame, but if I'm him, I'm going, what? Adelita, that's your kill line? Something this guy probably doesn't even remember saying? And how does Adelita even know this? Did Soledad tell her to say that? Were they having a girls' night where Soledad complained about how this hurt her feelings? But oh no! Turns out Eduardo's young granddaughter witnessed the entire thing. Adelita inflicted the horror that she witnessed as a child upon another child. She's become the very monster she once fought against. This was such a great lesson when we learned it for the first time last season. This is so redundant. This exact parallel was explored when she killed Linares to get Maverick back. Except then, it was infinitely better than this crap. Eduardo feels like he was introduced just to regurgitate this lesson. What a miss. Adelita had a perfect batting average before this. The rest of this episode is a mush of nonsense too, but the ending scene is perfect. Katie discovers that Easy is the rat and the reveal is stunning. The scene where she discovers this overlaps with a scene with Easy promising Sophia that there will be no more secrets in their relationship. The emphasis is on the word secrets, and the camera is focused on Easy's face. It's simple, but it's done well. It doesn't need to be complicated. Katie is sitting on her bed listening to Jimenez's old audio logs when she hears the magic words. Katie's delayed reaction to hearing Jimenez say Easy's name is great attention to detail. She really sells the confusion before rewinding the tape, as the camera does a slow pan over to a picture of Easy's face hanging from her wall. I know fans were split on the rat storyline coming back into play, but this is super compelling for me. I am all in on this. Episode 5, I Want Nothing But Death, opens on an awesome note because the Grim Bastards show up. Finally, a cameo from a club that doesn't suck ass this season. Grim Bastards President Lucky sits down and offers to facilitate peace talks on neutral ground between the Sons and the Mayans, teasing that the feds have been snooping around all over the place, and fearing that a RICO case may be on the docket for the MC world. Easy agrees, but claims he won't accept anything other than Isaac and Sam Dino's unconditional surrender. Miguel confronts Angel. It's a little odd to see the two paired up, as they usually aren't, but it works really well. Miguel warns Angel to convince Easy to stop interrupting cartel operations and to pull back from manufacturing fentanyl. He then flat out tells Angel that he knows it was him that burned the warehouse down. I'm sorry, I just can't hate that. Last season's big mystery, who possibly burned the warehouse down, this reveal is solved in a stupid throwaway line. It's delivered in the most casual way. There's no gravitas at all, and I kinda love it for that. Ultimately, I see it as a gesture of brotherly love between Miguel and Angel. But even if I'm wrong and it's not that, it's still hilarious. Even Angel's face is like, Katie informs Creeper that Easy's the rat, which Creeper just laughs off. He calls her a liar and pushes her away, but Smokey later confirms this. Creeper, desperate to tell Hank when he attends visitation, is surprised to find that Easy had come in his place. Man, I gotta tell you, the hair on my arms stood up when I saw Easy standing there instead of Hank. Easy fakes interest in Creeper's well-being, telling him to hold tight just a little longer and that the club will soon be back on top. Creeper ignores all of this and instead parrots Easy's president's speech back at him. Man, what a gangster. He made you a king, and you ain't nothing but a f***ing rat, he snarls. Easy, being the absolute scum bastard that he is, leaps over the table at Creeper, making it appear like Creeper attacked him and starts shouting for the guards. Creeper is beaten and thrown into solitary confinement, as Easy skates away scot-free once more. The centerpiece of this episode is the warehouse scene, and man, this is just goofy. The Sons and Mayans meet up to discuss terms with the bastards presiding over the two clubs. From a dialogue perspective, it's incredible. Isaac is perfection, and some of my favorite moments of his are found here. He's just sitting in a chair when all the Mayans walk in and politely says, "Hi, I'm Isaac," with all the mannerisms of a schoolboy. When he finds out Coco's dead, he sounds legitimately upset and questions the point of even being in a war if he can't meet up with Coco again. The messed up thing is, I believe him. I fully believe Isaac would stage this whole ass war just to continue antagonizing Coco. All that I have no issue with. Then the rest of it plays out, and it's so corny. A one-on-one fight ensues between Easy and the Shrek-sized Sons of Anarchy member. Easy beats him to death and everyone just leaves? The series treats this as a turning point for Easy, like he's finally earned the Mayans' trust after they've doubted his war efforts. But he didn't accomplish anything. The Sons still refuse to surrender and the Mayans are still losing the war. You could remove this scene and literally nothing would change about the narrative. Easy doesn't need to prove himself to the audience, we already know what he's capable of, and we've provided no further context for the Sons, so what was this for? Episode 6 serves as a breather after the craziness of the last episode's nothing. It's so weird because this is the point where Elgin usually explodes and starts ramping up the stakes, but the story stalls out instead. There's a fun scene with Luis teaching Emily to shoot, providing some great foreshadowing for later. I adore Adelita and Felipe's scene. It really puts into perspective how far these characters have come. She looks around his home and says, "I once came here to kill you." Felipe chuckles as if remembering a fond moment from his childhood and says, "I remember." She turns to leave and says, "I'm happy I didn't." It's sweet. They don't get many moments together, and I love the bonding she and Maverick have been doing with Felipe this season. A detail of the episode that I admire is Easy and Angel's bro day. It's very melancholic. Easy subtly makes it clear that he knows all of the secrets Angel's been keeping, expressing disappointment that he's been unsupportive of his presidency. Easy drives them to an unknown location, and I seriously feared for Angel here. Easy is being cryptic, and I don't think it's done solely to keep the audience in the dark. The two arrive at a shack in the middle of nowhere and burst in on Happy, who's been hiding out here. Happy accepts his fate, taunting the brothers and saying that it took them long enough, as they finally gun him down and avenge their mother. It was a miracle that Happy survived this long, and with how much more fleshed out his character was in Mayans, it did make sense for him to meet his end in this series. Marisol's arc finally comes full circle, and after 5 seasons, the Reyes family can now properly put this behind them. At this point in season 5, I am enjoying myself, but there's a definite lack of finality. This feels like a slapdash bridge season, not a final season. And there's a distinct lack of an episode to push the boundaries of the series, as far as stakes are concerned. Thankfully, episode 7, To Fear of Death, I Eat the Stars, remedies this, and is genuinely one of the saddest episodes of anything that I've ever seen. Right from the jump, this episode sucker punches you. Maggie and Bishop's relationship, at this point having been such a sign of hope for both characters, comes to an end. Maggie catches Bishop in bed with Trini, who he's had an erratic on-again, off-again situationship with since season 4. Maggie rips my soul out in this scene, man. Esparolini is delivering in spades. Her speech is drawing from so much personal experience and pain. Every single word drips with this rueful self-condemnation. God, her speech here, man. You showed me who you were when we first met. I did this to myself. Otherwise, I don't know if I'll ever recover. We did it. We f***ed it up. My heart is honestly shattered. She deserved so much better. And for the first time since the Sutter seasons, Bishop had received a spark of humanity through his relationship with her. This realization that just maybe he can have a positive force in his life again, only to selfishly and needlessly throw it away. I love them together, and I loved Maggie's character. It is so disheartening to see it end this way. Emily's arc seems to come full circle, and much like Miguel in season 4, this was the only time I really enjoyed her character. The entire season, she's been desperately trying to take Cristobal and escape from Miguel, only to be met with failure. Bulger really leans into this claustrophobic madness Emily is trapped in. You do feel suffocated watching her try to claw her way out. Her life goes so off the rails, she eventually winds up confronting Marlon's mom, who blames her for the death of her son and refuses to believe it was a suicide. As much as I loathed the Agripark story, this was the only significant takeaway. I don't hate that it gets tied back into the narrative, especially as a means to indicate the end of Emily's arc. Despite her best effort, Emily can't convince the grieving mother, and the situation spirals so far out of control that Emily winds up killing her, with Louise stepping in to clean up the mess. The way it's paced and executed all season is satisfying enough, but the cherry on top comes when Emily thanks Louise for his help. Of course, Mrs. Galindo. Anytime Mr. Galindo has a problem, I'm the one that makes it go away. The look she gives him after he says this. The pained understanding on her face as she puts 2 and 2 together and realizes that Louise was the one who pulled the trigger on Aaron is fantastic. From here on out, the bodies pile sky high, with 2 of the most tragic ends I've ever witnessed. The first to take a bow, unfortunately, being Adelita. Soledad offers her a way out of the cartel gig, the price being that she must kill Easy. Instead, Adelita goes full-on John Wick mode. It's great to see her do her thing one last time. She even kills this square-faced dumb bitch. I know I literally have not mentioned her all video, but I hated this character. She steals the cartel's money, taking a few bullets in the process, and in an unexpected cameo, delivers the cash to Minnie. Minnie strides over to Adelita, and in a horrifying twist that, I kid you not, almost actually made me vomit, brutally murders her.
What a twist!
It's reminiscent of Palomo's death. Minnie is hacking and slashing away with a knife. She's literally carving Adelita a new stomach. It is absolutely sickening. This is one of those rare moments that invokes such a strong reaction that I forget reaching my hand out to the TV and saying, no, don't, doesn't actually do anything. I've heard so many detractors bitch and moan endlessly about this moment. They lob criticism after criticism, claiming that it makes no sense that Minnie is the one to kill Adelita. And once again, I have to ask, are we watching the same show? Adelita's death is torture. It's also poetic and thematically appropriate. There's not a character that's better suited to deliver this death than Minnie. Think about who these two characters are for just a minute. Both are victims of cartel violence. Both have been permanently scarred by this life. Both have suffered under regimes or leaders that promised to give Mexico back to the people that eventually sold out to the cartel. Adelita was all Minnie had. She idolized, respected, and trusted her, and found solace only in her after being abandoned by the world. Minnie was taught from childhood that the cartel is the ultimate evil, and that nothing, absolutely nothing, should be prioritized over their defeat. Adelita taught her to detach from anything in this universe that would take the cartel out of her crosshairs. This has been consistent with both of them since their initial introductions. Adelita did what she taught Minnie to never do. She chose her family, leading to an unintentional alliance with the cartel. The nuances of that choice are what makes this so sad, what makes it hit so hard. Adelita chose her child, her flesh and blood that was ripped away from her, then presumed dead. Yes, she was strong-armed by Potter. Yes, she was planning a rebellion. Yes, she does turn against the cartel. But Minnie doesn't care about any of that, nor should she. To Minnie, this issue is black and white. You either fight against the cartel or fight for them. A lesson taught to her by Adelita. This is evident in Minnie's final words to the only real mother she's ever known. You are the devil. That's it. Simply put, black and white. Adelita was killed not solely by Minnie, but by the version of Minnie she crafted with her own two hands. Minnie is the monster Adelita created. The promise of this arc began in the first episode and comes full circle here. At the end of it all, Adelita uses her final breath to utter just one word. Maverick. I am in tears. Before I can even process that, Nestor shoots Jess in the face.
Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
It jumped up a notch.
It did, didn't it?
Nestor has had his suspicions since season 4, and the club finally deduces that Jess has been feeding info to Jasmine and by extension Terry and Sam Dino. Nestor is a real one and a true soldier. He shows no hesitation. I wound up liking him so much, I actually felt for the guy when he's shown moping around the spot that he and Jess used to smoke at. The club regains controls of the prisons, shifting the power balance back towards Easy and Santo Padre, while also granting him control over Iron War. I'm impressed with the roller coaster ride that is Easy Reyes' presidency. Every victory comes with 2 more death traps he has to navigate. Every piece of the puzzle that he solves somehow makes it more difficult. Creeper is finally released from solitary confinement and races to contact Hank, but right before he can deliver who the real rat is, he's ambushed and fatally stabbed by the other inmates. A member of Iron War watches on, granting us the tragic realization that this hit was sanctioned by Easy. Creeper's death is less surprising than Adelita's, but just as devastating. I figured he'd never turn on the club or make it out of prison, but to see him go out like this is just wrong. Creeper was the epitome of a true brother. He was hands down the realest Mayan, and he had a heart and soul that no other member could match. To watch this outcast, this person who always felt alone, be suckered into thinking he'd found someone in Katie, a person he could share his life with and open up to, only to wind up becoming more isolated than ever before. To find out everything he's ever known or believed in was a lie, not once, but twice. His death was sanctioned by a brother, one he had the utmost faith in and would die for. At the end of it all, Creeper's unflinching loyalty was rewarded with betrayal, and his last act was a selfless one, spent trying to protect those who couldn't protect him. We take a break from the carnage to focus on Angel. who's finally realized that Adelita is gone and won't be coming back. It's beyond brutal that he never finds out what happened to her. Felipe never reveals that he knew Adelita was working with the cartel. Angel has had his suspicions, but ultimately comes to the conclusion that she abandoned him again. Considering how impulsive he can be, maybe it's for the best that he never gets the truth about what actually happened to her. And the sad reality is that sometimes this does happen. People die or disappear, and the ones that love them never get that closure, often spending the rest of their lives searching for it. As if on cue, Maverick slides up on the bed right next to Angel, reminding him that his son is what truly matters. Despite how grim everything else may look, his reason for living and continuing to fight is right by his side. It's also adorable how this kid accurately mimics Angel's actions and slides right over. This 2-year-old is genuinely a better actor than a handful of the adults. After so much violence and death and heartbreak, Santo Padre comes together to celebrate their success and begins planning to eradicate the Sons. However, Diaz bursts in and ruins the moment, shouting about Easy and Angel killing a member of Sam Crow, threatening Oakland and Charming's peace treaty. Easy pacifies him and seems to rally Oakland into Santo Padre's war effort, and then Guerrero gets up and shoots Diaz in the back of the head as some long overdue justice for Ibarra. Elgin, bro, I love you, but for f***'s sake, there's entirely too much going on as it is. This is shocking, yeah, but I've never been a fan of deaths that serve just as a rug pull and serve no real narrative purpose. They try to rectify this by dumping his body outside of the Grim Bastards' clubhouse in an attempt to force them to ally with the Mayans in the war against the Sons. And to be fair, that works, but still. I feel like there were other ways to do that didn't involve killing Diaz. The next episode sees the death toll continue to rise, as well as the resolution to a few storylines I really don't care about. Chief among them, that Hope kills herself. This relies on being able to draw sympathy for Letty, which I just cannot do. All Letty has ever been is an obnoxious, belligerent problem. She's directly and indirectly responsible for the death of several characters, and has spilled blood herself, never taking any accountability and forcing others to clean up her messes. She's a reckless, ignorant liar and a constant source of annoyance. She spends this entire season shaking down drug dealers against Hope's protests, then stupidly attempts to con Butterfly, leading to her and Hope being discovered by Isaac. In a true test of my patience to this series, its two worst worlds collide, as Letty infiltrates the Broken Saints clubhouse under orders from Isaac. All series long, she's left a path of death and destruction, emboldened by her selfishness. This results in Hope feeling like she has to pull a Jax that truck drivers in this universe really can't catch a break, in an attempt to truly free Letty from Isaac. There are few characters in Mayans less deserving of a happy ending than Letty, and I feel absolutely nothing for her plight. Nothing. There are a few bright spots in this episode though, and the biggest one is Alvarez finally coming to terms with the end of his career as a Mayan. He's arrived too little too late at the conclusion that this organization that he started, once a symbol of pride, is now cancerous and will collapse in on itself. It's not a matter of if, only when. Obviously, Diaz's death hits him hard. So hard that he walks into Sons of Anarchy territory and holds Quinn at gunpoint, demanding answers for Diaz's death. I always found it funny that Quinn, a glorified background character from the original series with hardly any dialogue, drops one of the hardest lines here.
Wonder if you want to join him, mister? We're gonna need a name.
Try your own backyard. We're all down for the trip, brother. But you Mayans, you kill each other more than we kill you. It wasn't us.
The club holds a funeral for Creeper with a couple of surprise guests, one being an angry Katie, the other being Taza, who states his intentions to come back to Santo Padre, 2 episodes before the series finale. On a much cooler note, I find it incredibly wholesome that the club cheers to Creeper using water bottles instead of alcohol. That's an unreal amount of respect, not just for the character, but for the actor. A heartbroken and confused Angel turns up at Felipe's door, requesting to stay with him as he can't stay in his home anymore. as Sam Dino rolls out and torches the Broken Saints' clubhouse, along with the Mayans' fentanyl lab. The penultimate episode deals with the aftermath of Sam Dino's attack, as we learn that Elio, as well as the Mayans' production supplies, perished in the fire. The walls really start to close in, as every alliance or deal that Easy had worked to secure hinged on their production of the drug. Without it, they lose every deal and all of their protection, and will actively have people gunning for their club. After crashing his bike, Easy meets a familiar stranger and runs into none other than Wendy. I love every single aspect of their conversation. I hated this originally. Hated that the second to last episode of the series was not only a shorter episode, but one dominated by this pedantic conversation. This watch through though, I understood what they were going for. This is the real link between shows. Not the other cameos, not the familiar clubs or settings. Wendy's arrival is what builds that bridge. There's such a natural rhythm in the way she delivers her lines, such an evenness and honesty to her words. The mentions of Jax, Abel, and Thomas are so appropriate. This never feels forced or manufactured just because the audience has prior knowledge of her. She's one of the few characters that's able to prompt an honest response out of Easy, and one of the even fewer who has a positive impact on him. Potter meets up with Katie as the two agree to team up and take down the Mayans. And Potter is as good as he's ever been here. Even better. McKinnon has been a treasure all series long. Props to him for carrying so much of the weight of this season. The episode ends on a bang with Isaac, propelled by the news that Packer has finally succumbed to his cancer, wants the MC to know what it's like to lose a brother, and goes hunting for Angel. They invade his empty house before heading over to Felipe's, where a badass shootout takes place.
That was rude!
I love him so much. We get to see Ignacio doing his thing one last time as the old man succumbs to his injuries while protecting Maverick. Angel returns from a food run to find police swarming the home. Cardenas rolls out so many different reactions in such a short span of time. His intense relief with seeing Maverick unharmed, mingled with the shocked, guttural pain of seeing Felipe's body rolled out of the house by EMTs, is so genuinely sad. His mother, his father, his wife, and any good left in his brother. This life and the club has taken everything from him. The only thing he has left is Maverick. The final episode opens with Felipe's funeral. Miguel is in attendance and holding on to old photographs and letters that prove, without a shadow of a doubt, that he is Felipe's son. He debates presenting these to the brothers, and Easy essentially tells him to fuck off. This funeral is for family and friends. You're neither. Miguel agrees as Angel catches a glimpse of the documents he's holding, and that's it. The brothers never find out they're all related, and that is the only way the show chooses to address it. This was so dragged out for no reason, but I gotta be honest with you, I don't hate it. I understand why fans were critical of this, I really do, but honestly, what does it change if they all find out? That's not even taking into consideration what happens to each brother over the course of the next hour. But even as it stands, it would affect nothing. Easy would still have the same response. He would never acknowledge Miguel as a Reyes. And it's not like Miguel is leaping at the opportunity to be chummy with Easy. Angel might have attempted a connection, but it's simply just too late for this reveal. There's just no time to do anything with it. For as random and as slapdash as it felt when it was introduced, it's appropriate that it feels as random and as slapdash upon its exit from the series. Following Miguel's leave, Potter shows up to give Easy a cryptic warning. And I do really enjoy his barb about the birds still singing when Easy meets his end. He also refers to Felipe as Ignacio Cortez. Did anyone else catch that? I don't know if that was intentional, I don't know if that was just a flub, or if maybe it was a reference to Hernan Cortez and the Aztecs, or what. It just was so random. The resolution to the Suns-Mayans war is next, and good God, this is awful. Truly, truly awful. This is Elgin's worst fumble in my opinion. This is egregiously bad. It's so shameful, because the big monologue Easy gives the other Mayans at the clubhouse before they ride out, and I mean that in a metaphorical sense and not a literal sense, because we couldn't even get one scene of them actually riding here, is fantastic, and it really serves to hype up the audience. I was feeling it. Pardo is doing some of his best work here. The actual fight, though, is just sad. I scoured this scene for clues. But it does seem like the Sons were just randomly hanging out at a bar listening to a crappy punk band. Seriously? You're at war! There's no security, no lookouts, no defenses. The Mayans literally kick the door down, storm the place, and just start beating and killing people with no pushback. Nothing can make me love Isaac less, but his death is garbage too. My buddy Chris pointed out that he's echoing the fan base here, because Isaac is insisting, this can't be it, there's gotta be more, before Easy just promptly shoots him in the face and the war ends. This is depressingly anticlimactic. For a storyline that's been building since the late game of Season 3, and has been actively unfolding for almost 2 seasons, you'd think that at least one person on the writing staff would give a shit about giving it a proper ending, but no. Are my expectations subverted? Yes. Is this idiotic, rushed, and sloppy? Also yes. For f***'s sake, the war storyline is over in the first 20 minutes of an hour and 20-minute finale, the first 10 minutes of that being Felipe's funeral. This feels purposely insulting. The Mayans celebrate, and the one good takeaway from this scene is that Trini perfectly sums up Bishop's character. You're a beautiful, broken man, but you're also a piece of shit. That is literally the most accurate way you can describe Bishop. Dangerous women aren't done meeting up with Bishop just yet though, as Katie later turns up at his apartment, claiming that she has a message from Creeper. So many people bitched about this scene, as that's literally all we see of their conversation. And for the final time, I will ask, are we watching the same show? People were going insane, asking idiotic questions like, why would Bishop just believe her about Easy being a rat? He just believes it because she said so? Did you miss the scene where Katie found tangible proof that Easy was working with the feds? That was a whole subplot for the first half of this season. Did you really think that she wouldn't bring the proof with her? You need to be spoon-fed another scene of her showing Bishop what we already know to be true? Even taking all of that aside, Bishop would absolutely believe this. He's been actively working to discredit Easy's presidency all season. He's still power hungry for the head of the table. Bishop is looking for literally any opportunity to take his crown back. It is 100% believable that he would side against Easy if it meant getting the president's patch back. Even if he didn't believe what Katie was saying, this is how spiteful he's become. Luckily, he doesn't need to blindly believe her because she has the proof. That may be my final I'm salty moment, but I promise nothing. Sophia learns that she's pregnant around the same time that Izzy finally gives birth. This is such a beautiful scene and a wonderful send-off to Alvarez, who, through the birth of his child, receives confirmation that he's made the right choice by leaving his old life behind. This even comes with the added bonus of giving Bishop one final chance at goodness, as he shows up at the hospital to congratulate his estranged cousin. I respect that Bishop declines the offer to meet the baby, sadly offering to do so next time. It contrasts nicely with the fact that the last baby he held in his arms was Maggie's son's, highlighting the fact that he's cognizant of the last time he held a new life in his hands, he ruined everything. The finale really starts to gather steam here, as Easy and Angel go on one last ride together. I don't know how much of a hot take this is, but I'm going to do my best here to explain why I feel the way I do. This scene, from the Reyes brothers' ride to the end of their conversation on the bridge, is the best scene across the series, my favorite scene between both Mayans and Sons of Anarchy, and one of the best scenes I've ever watched, period. This scene is why the finale works. This is why, for as many things as I've talked about negatively through the final ride, I can say that, without a doubt, Elgin stuck the landing. Remove this scene, the episode crumbles. The relationship between Angel and Easy is the real story of Mayans. The war with the Sons was just a backdrop. This is what Mayans is really about, and it has always been here. From start to end, this has been cleverly integrated, meticulously crafted, genuinely emotional, and perfectly executed. This is peak. This is the GOAT. I cannot praise this enough. Angel states his intention to leave the club and be with Maverick, and a heartbroken Easy lets him go. It sounds so simple, but it's a credit to how well these characters have been written that this winds up being as impactful as it is. From the beginning, from them riding through Santo Padre and laughing and racing each other, you as a viewer begin to remember why you even liked Easy to begin with. A character who spun so out of control, burned every bridge with complete disregard for anyone's safety, killed without mercy. It feels like an eternity since he's felt human, much less likable. But that all melts away when he's with Angel. Angel is the true love of Easy's life. Not Gabby or Sophia. It's not the club or even his parents. It's Angel. It has always been Angel. At one point, Angel started to grow and mature as a character and a club member, and we straight up missed the nuances. Angel was promised growth and maturity, and as a viewer, I was so caught up in waiting for him to have his moment that I missed it. He is grown now. The changes we were promised materialized before we had a chance to process them. Nails once said to him that he has a good heart, that the rest of him just needs to catch up. Well, he's arrived at that point she spoke about. The rest of Angel caught up. The genius of this scene is that after it's over, it seems like the most obvious thing in the world. Of course Easy was doing this all for Angel. Of course he loves his brother more than anyone else in the world. Prior to this, though, I spent the entire season thinking Easy would kill Angel. I was convinced that's how it would play out. This makes you feel stupid for ever considering that possibility. It seems inconceivable that Easy would ever purposely do anything to harm Angel. It totally sneaks up on you. This hits so hard for me, and it's a little difficult to understand why it's so impactful unless you have brothers. I'm the oldest of 4, and I think about how I would do anything in my power to be there for them and protect them. Everyone's grown now, a couple of them are married, people go in their own directions as life happens, it is what it is. I don't know if this will make any amount of sense, but this scene, even though it presents the relationship between Easy and Angel in a more streamlined way, says so much without saying it. It just brings me back to when my brothers and I were kids, booting up the PS2 and arguing and hanging out all day. There's a nostalgic, almost longing for the past conveyed. And all of that context, all of it, has been provided through every single interaction these two have had across Mayans. Every line spoken to one another. Every decision made together. All things done and all things left unsaid have contributed to the raw, honest beauty found in this scene. I can't recommend it enough, and by that same token, I can't even tell you to go check it out, because on its own, it doesn't work nearly as well. This is the payoff to everyone that's been hanging around since the very beginning. It speaks volumes of the DNA that composes Season 5. The big, overarching story beats are fumbled or mismanaged, but the individual arcs, the real meat and potatoes, are handled beautifully and substantially. Not many characters get a good send-off. Hell, the number of significant characters that make it out of this final episode can be counted on one hand. But I think it means that much more that the ones who do were given such a deserved and heartfelt goodbye. Emily winds up being one of those, and perhaps more surprising, I was rooting for her. I couldn't believe it, but Elgin won me over and had me invested in a character that I'd really never cared for. At the end of the day, she's a mother who's found herself disconnected from everyone and everything that she loves. Emily just wants to ensure a safe life for the one person left that she truly cares about, her child. It parallels Angel's struggle so perfectly. Her escape has been foreshadowed extremely well. This ran the risk of feeling random, but the writers did an excellent job of carefully building her arc across this season. She stages a murder-suicide, killing Miguel and Luis, and in the most tragic way possible, guaranteeing Cristobal's safety while bringing herself closure for Aaron's murder. I gotta say, even though I was coming around near the end, it is so satisfying to see Miguel die. This pompous has had it coming for quite some time.
We're in the end game now.
We meet back up with the club for one last Templo. Easy congratulates his brothers on their victory, and Angel tearfully announces his intention to leave the club and take care of Maverick. Hank suggests patching Nestor in, which is met with unanimous approval. While congratulating Nestor, Bishop springs his trap in a move that actually caught me off guard. Easy is held down by Gilly, with Angel held at gunpoint by Hank. Bishop had apparently held his own meeting before this one, and the club finally knows Easy's secret. The more Bishop screams and rages, the more dire you realize this situation is. The club's now in bed with cops, indebted to dangerous crime lords, all while Easy went around killing his own brothers to ensure that no one would ever find out that he was a rat. It seems neither Reyes leaves here alive, Easy desperately insisting that Angel didn't know. Angel is given the chance to prove it when he's handed a knife and instructed to kill Easy and choose the patch over his brother. Cardenas legitimately looks like he's about to have a panic attack, while every nerve ending in my body recoils in horror. Easy begs him to do it. It's the only way. Maverick is waiting outside, and the only way Angel gets to see his son again is if he kills his baby brother. Tell your boy about me? Tell him about Mom. Tears in his eyes as he faces the most painful decision of his life, Angel deals a fatal blow. One by one, each man takes a turn plunging the knife in while Angel holds his dying brother in his arms. The varied reactions are so brutal. Guero and Gilly are in tears, Nestor is crestfallen, Hank stays steadfast, and Bishop growls,
You ain't the only one that reads Shakespeare, motherfucker.
Easy's death is beyond savage. It's a petrifying affair that shakes me to my very core. This is one of those scenes where I didn't realize I was holding my breath until it was over. And at the end of the day, I'm sad to see Easy go. Ultimately, I think his death hits me harder than Jack's for a few reasons. One being that Jack's had time to make preparations. He went out on his own terms. The other being that, while Jax's death was definitely more symbolic, Easy's made a more lasting impression due to the graphic nature of it. We see every painstaking detail, nothing is left to the imagination. Easy wasn't ready to go, nor did he think he was going to. For him, it was just another day until it wasn't. There is a strange peace in Easy forcibly keeping a smile on his face through it all. At the end of his road, I believe that Easy was fulfilled. Not necessarily for what he accomplished for the club, but because Angel was the one to really put an end to him. The rest of the club was just rubbing salt in the wound. In Easy's mind, he believes that it had to be Angel. It couldn't be a member of the cartel or the Sons. There'd be no honor in that. He'd have let himself and the club down if that was the case. He almost feels martyred, as his death allows Angel to truly live a free life. Not once to miss dotting their I's, the club sends bottles to gun down Sofia, successfully cleaning up all traces of Easy Reyes and anyone who loved him, all while earning Bottles his patch. Bishop reclaims his throne, wearing the blood-stained president's patch he just ripped from Easy's corpse. What a savage. Elgin has one more rug pull prepared as the camera pans outside of the clubhouse. We see Potter and Katie stationed at the entrance while ATF agents flood the inside. We don't physically get to see anything, but we hear multiple gunshots and see plenty of blood hitting the windows. And I have a lot of trouble believing any of the remaining Santo Padre club members inside surrendered peacefully. It's a safe assumption that Bishop, Hank, Gilly, Guero, Nestor, and Bottles just met their end. I didn't have Lincoln Potter as the conclusive winner of the series on my bingo card, but here we are. This was a pretty controversial move, as the everyone dies ending often is. For me though, I get it. Fans complained that it felt random and that the series felt pointless as a result, but, and I'm sure if you're still watching this video, what I say next is totally gonna shock you, I disagree. The finale isn't really about who dies, but who gets to live. Wonderful send-offs were provided for most of the right characters. The final shot of Mayans is of Angel standing on the beach holding Maverick, his tattoos blacked out as he faces the sunset. Finally, having broken the cycle of violence passed down by his father and continued by he and his brother, Angel survives and can now ensure Maverick grows up without the baggage associated with the name Reyes. Emily, Angel, and Alvarez got their second chances. The characters that were most worthy of one, in my opinion. They made it to the end with dignity and grace, having had to endlessly fight for their survival all series long. I say almost all the right characters got a great send-off because Sally was dealt a fate worse than death, because she gets stuck with Letty and the Broken Saints. I guess you can't have everything. As far as Santo Padre is concerned, there was really no other way their story could end. The justification for this was set up in season 3. This doesn't feel like a random ass pull for me. They sealed their doom when they started killing fellow club members. That's a move you can't recover from, and it's a miracle they made it this far. Across the final 2 seasons, especially this one, all they did was lengthen their enemies list. Every time Alvarez tried to steer the ship away from disaster, Bishop or Easy would double down on death and destruction. The rest of the club, sans Angel, happily marching alongside them. Even if we weren't explicitly shown their deaths at the hands of Potter, one could reasonably assume that they wouldn't make it through the week. For one thing, Charming was now involved in the war due to the death of Happy. And with Charming being the Sons of Anarchy's mother charter, that meant every other son was joining in. The Mayans were barely capable of taking on one single charter, and it's a known fact that the Sons outnumber them 10-1. Through Charming's involvement, the Grim Bastards would eventually realize that they were lied to by Easy, shifting their alliance back towards the Sons as well. Then there's Cole and his men. Cole is not a patient man. With the fentanyl lab being destroyed and nothing being salvageable, the club would have to locate another cook, get new suppliers, and somehow produce 10 times more than the cartel. That took damn near all season to figure out, and they were barely making the quota as it is. Cole only agreed not to slaughter them on the contingency that they could provide more drugs than the cartel. With supplies drying up, that gives Santo Padre no leverage over the prisons or Iron War, who would once again set their sights on any and all incarcerated Mayans. The fentanyl going away means the cartel comes back into the picture, and that means Cole outing the club to Soledad. So now they also have a cartel target on their heads. Add that to the growing RICO case being built, and yeah, they're pretty much f***ed. There was no feasible way for Santo Padre to stay alive, but more importantly, they didn't deserve to. I honestly thought it was refreshing to see a series of this nature where the bad guys straight up lose with no frills attached. For my money, the series stuck the landing. And well, some of the more minute details were fumbled, I truly feel that the most important aspects of the story were handled correctly. Overall, though, the final season is an objective mess. There are way too many wasted plot lines, despite how awesome I thought the finale was. There's a thread with Sophia's ex returning that goes absolutely nowhere and adds nothing to her character. We have all this drama with Gilly, Ray, and their past relationship that overcomplicates the superb veteran PTSD plotline. The twist of Jacob being Gilly's son falls painfully flat. Not that I'll ever lobby to see more of the Broken Saints, but they tease this mysterious mother character once and then it's never brought up again. Nails even pops back up, and I'm not even sure that anyone on the writing staff understood what she was doing back in Santo Padre. Nails had such a satisfying and complete arc. She didn't need to return, and her appearance adds literally nothing to the show. Then there's the subplot with Eduardo and the new cartel, the supposed rivals of Soledad and the LNG. The biggest problem of the earlier seasons was that there were too many warring factions. They introduced this guy just to kill him, so we could learn a lesson that was already shown to much better effect last season. And speaking of Soledad, she just kind of fades out from the show after Adelita's death. There's a lot of time dedicated to Patricia Devlin and her scheming to investigate and bring down Potter. This hinges on Miguel's testimony, and it just crashes and burns. A dead man obviously can't give testimony, but that lends credence to the hatred fans feel for the everyone dies ending. This was teased all season long. There is so much back and forth with Patricia and the Galindos and Potter, and it's so wasteful when everything is said and done. Then there's Taza's return. He shows up at the endgame, then is mentioned once in a throwaway line, and then he's never seen again. What the f*** was the point? This amount of bloat is what leads me to believe that there was at least one more season in the works. I believe that Elgin had the finale planned out, but many of the intricate details leading up to it felt last minute. When you choose to end a series in the manner that he did, you have no choice but to bring everything to an abrupt halt. This season's biggest issue comes from the egregious waste of these subplots, and the incredibly rushed nature of this batch of episodes. Unlike the previous seasons, which had one or two big overarching stories with a few scattered subplots, this season is all colossal, consequential narratives. Easy's reveal as a rat, the war between the Sons and the Mayans. There's simply no single B-plot that's a worthy contrast to these straight-up juggernauts. This makes it so that everything that's not related to Easy being a rat or about the war feels tacked on and aimless. On top of that, they're still juggling older storylines that never properly integrate into the current narrative. Simply put, much of the newer stuff just isn't that interesting, or isn't given enough time to be properly fleshed out. And the older stuff is presented in such a clunky manner that makes it clear that it was only continued for fear of fan backlash, not out of necessity to the larger story. That being said, the character stuff is as good as it's ever been, and despite every hiccup, I greatly enjoyed Mayans. Sutter's foundation set the stage for Elgin to deliver a truly special experience. One that eventually did stand on its own and separate itself from Sons of Anarchy. It's not always written super tightly, and can suffer under some convoluted plot lines or weird direction. There are a couple of big swings that miss. Overall though, this is some of my favorite character work across any media that I've ever seen. At so many points, especially during Elgin's run, I felt that same pulse-pounding excitement, that same restlessness and rush to find out what happens next, where the wait felt agonizing and I felt like I couldn't bear it any longer. There's a unique flair, a fearlessness in which Mayans tells its story, and it evolves to be so much more than just a Chicano Sons of Anarchy knockoff. It's not just a worthy spin-off, it's a worthy series. And I can absolutely recommend it without any caveats. Because each and every moment, the weird moments, the great moments, the heartbreaking moments, the stupid moments, the smart moments, the everything in between moments, they are all part of this complete package that I've grown to love so much. And I would be a damn liar if I told you that this wasn't one hell of a ride. Well, to anyone who may be left, thank you guys so much for watching. I have been Fatman, and that was Mayans. That was a really long video. In terms of everything, the longest I've ever done. Thank you guys for being patient with this one. It took a lot out of me. I don't know what the next project I'm gonna do is. I don't think it's gonna be another retrospective. I want to take a break from those for a minute, but I do have another big project in the works, and there is something coming out in April that I really do want to check out and make a video on. If you have any suggestions, the comments are yours, and please talk to me about Mayans. I got a lot of great feedback on my Sons of Anarchy video, and that's still growing in views and comments and engagement, and I love it. Not just about the numbers, I just like talking to people about these shows. Clearly, I like talking about these shows because we have been here for what feels like an eternity.
Great Scott, no wonder. Look at the time. We've been here nearly 4 hours.
But I never tire of it, so sound off. Sorry, my voice is a little tired. I'm stumbling. Sound off if you liked it, you loved it, you hated it. Have a debate with me. Let's talk about it. For ZeitgeistOG, I have been Fatman. Thank you for watching. Hit that bell, that subscribe button on your way out. Spread this around. This takes a lot of effort. Let people see us, let people hear us, and I will see you guys in whatever the hell my next video winds up being. Thank you for watching. I'm done! That took forever.
God damn, what a feat of strength.
What a saga. But specifically of what was... I f***ed that up one more time. Creeper is far away... That was weird. One more time. There's a real duality about Queeper. He's a Queeper. Felipe carries a world of experience, something else, and another thing that I can't remember. Sutter just jumps right into the action, and... Sorry, there was a loud noise from upstairs that distracted me. I'm gonna do that line again. Sutter just jumps right into the action. And in the process of that, there's noise. Matt, there's a weird, scary noise happening. I need an adult. Alright, we're good? Everything's rolling again?
Ooh, Daddy's script reading.
Oh yeah, you're as the kids would say kosher.
The cartel's overabundance necessitates the Damn it. The cartel's overabundance necessitates the something. She is just the right amount of... Make sure you censor... I don't think I've ever used in a script before. You can't trick the viewer when you're specifically showing them scenes of Miguel recruiting child... Once more, from You Can't Trick the Viewer. Why do these shows always insist on having one character like this in these series? That's redundant. I said show already. We're gonna do that again. Cedrica Palomo. I knew the next line. I don't know why I stuttered there. Alright, now we're gonna start one more time from Cedrica Palomo. It reminds me of the purposely overdramatic twist that Dr. Navarro... Otherwise, he'll call in ICE and have them deport Easy Reyes. Not Easy, Felipe. Later, Miguel discovers Dita's body while Alvarez and Nestor discover motorcycle tracks near the scene of the... One more time. On the one hand, I can understand why fans would hate this. I'm gonna do that line again because the doggo was barking loud. I don't love that the unknown Sons of Anarchy. And I gotta hand it with anytime Pino and what? Yeah, Pino. Anytime Pino and Almost get to have it back in. Anytime Pino and Almost. Why does that sound so wrong to me? Bishop, in desperation and fueled by ego and feelings of a betrayal. Bishop, in desperation and fueled by ego and something else. Ibarra meets with Bishop? No, he doesn't. He meets with Diaz.
Yeah, the only small bottle I have. It's ibuprofen. I usually take 3 of them. I think they're like 200 milligrams each.
No, I'll do 2.
These are f***ing horse pills. They gave half of one to Elvis and he died.
Matt, why do you have garlic sitting here?
Why don't you? In case vampires.
Yeah, it's grown. Yeah, you would have a problem with me having garlic now, wouldn't you?
I'm really questioning.
Okay, well that's another tick on the list of Dave might be a vampire.
Brutally crushing an Brutally crushing an opposing mind's arm in the There's a unique layer added to this through the worsening something of his something. While I really admire Elgin's strive to be as what are you looking for?
Dave needs to charge the phone.
Him.
Yeah, him. I don't want to hear his bitching any longer.
Humanizes him and works to make him a more fully realized character. Matt, the battery's dying.